Chapter 2972. Boom. Another deafening sound echoed. Suzimo's grotto heaven phantom and the Kuan monarch's grotto heaven shattered at the same time, turning into nothingness. Suzimo raised the tiny horsetail whisk with one hand and 3,000 silver threads tore through the air, wrapping around the Kuan monarch's body to prevent him from reverting to his true form. At the same time, he threw out the Sanyu Rui with his other hand towards the Kuan monarch's head. With his other hand, he waved the Qingping sword and stabbed towards the other party's glabella. Seeing that the situation was bad, the other Kuan monarch hurriedly supported his grotto heaven to suppress it. Suzimo's grotto heaven phantom had already dissipated in the collision earlier on. Now that it was facing the attack of another grotto heaven, it seemed like it could not withstand the burden. Inside his body, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. His body was trembling slightly. "Let's see how you're going to survive." The Kuan monarch roared and channeled his essence spirit, releasing all the power of his grotto heaven. The grotto heaven behind him emitted a dark light and surged coldly within, enveloping Suzimo bit by bit. Suzimo's physical body had indeed reached the level of the grotto heaven realm. However, it was still difficult for him to withstand the might of the grotto heaven. Seeing Suzimo's figure being devoured by the grotto heaven bit by bit, the carefree Xiaoyao clenched his fists tightly with tears in his eyes. He struggled continuously as the chains on his body rattled. Fu. When the black-armored man saw this, he chuckled and said proudly, "Stop struggling. This is the fate of you and your disciple." Immortal King Yulan sighed inwardly when she saw this scene. The fact that Suzimo could kill two Kuan monarchs and destroy the grotto heaven of a third Kuan monarch had already far exceeded her imagination. Unfortunately, he was still a little lacking. Suzimo was dead, and there was no way she could hold on here. It was time for her to think of a way out. Right then, a sonorous voice sounded from the Kuan monarch's grotto heaven. "I've never believed in fate." The moment he said that, a series of terrifying cracking sounds could be heard from the Kuan monarch's grotto heaven. Above the small heavenly abode, spiderweb-like cracks gradually appeared and rapidly expanded, covering the entire heavenly abode. Whoosh! Suddenly, streaks of dazzling green light burst out of the small grotto heaven, illuminating the void and cleansing the universe. Rumble. Subsequently, a deafening explosion resounded from the battlefield. Even Immortal King Yulan and the other two who were fighting in the distance were shocked and subconsciously looked over. Then, the three of them saw an extremely shocking scene. A dark green Qinglian was seen bursting out of that small heavenly passage, defying the heavens as it rose up. Enormous lotus leaves grew on its body, covering the sky and covering the sun, flickering with light. At the very top of Qinglian, there was a lotus flower that emitted a green brilliance. The 12 circles of lotus leaves were constantly blooming, and the 108 lotus seeds were dancing in the air. This Qinglian exuded an incomparably terrifying aura, as if it was the god of all creatures. It took root in the stars, connected to the heavens and penetrated the earth, overlooking the 3,000 worlds. Hiss! When the three peak stage immortal kings saw this scene, they were all shocked. This is the 12th grade creation Qinglian. Immortal King Yulan had long guessed that Suzimo might be related to the creation Qinglian, but she did not expect that Suzimo had already cultivated the creation Qinglian to the 12th grade realm. Under normal circumstances, Suzimo's physical body had already reached the level of a small heavenly abode. After releasing the eight-fang divine power, the power of this bloodline phenomenon had already surpassed that of a small heavenly abode. When the 12th grade creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon appeared, Suzimo, who was under the four-headed and eight-armed immortal king, immediately broke free and took out the Trijade Rui scepter, the Tai horsetail whisk, and the Qingping sword to attack the two Kuan kings. The two Kuan kings were scared out of their wits. They had never seen a true spirit being able to erupt with such terrifying combat strength. The bloodline phenomenon of a true spirit was able to destroy a small heavenly abode. What kind of bloodline was this? Without the protection of the heavenly abode, the two of them could not withstand Suzimo's attack at all. In close combat, no one could defeat the four-headed and eight-armed Suzimo. Not to mention the two Kuan kings. Even two more would not be enough. The two Kuan kings also took out their bloodline phenomenons, but they still could not withstand the attack of the 12th grade creation Qinglian. The giant Kuan behind them appeared and wanted to devour the 12th grade creation Qinglian, but it was quickly shattered by the swaying Qinglian and turned into nothingness. The most terrifying thing was that the two Kuan kings could clearly feel that their bloodlines were being suppressed. The 12th grade creation Qinglian appeared behind them, and the four-headed, eight-armed Su Zimo held all kinds of divine weapons. His gaze was like lightning, and his aura was monstrous. He was unparalleled. Ever since Su Zimo's Qinglian true body stepped into the true self stage, he was worried that his bloodline would be exposed, so he had never used his full strength. Even when facing the siege of more than 20 supreme true spirits in the evil demon battlefield, Su Zimo had still held back. It was only today that the 12th grade Qinglian true body truly erupted with its full strength. In just a few rounds, it killed the two Kuan kings. This was the true combat strength of Qinglian true body at its peak state. Su Zimo had not stepped into the heavenly abode, but he dared to travel with immortal King Yulan. The most important reason was that he had something to rely on. He knew that if he really faced an ordinary immortal king, he had enough means to kill them. Even if he could not defeat a peerless king or a peak king, he had the chance to escape thousands of miles away. At this point in the battle, the four Kuan kings guarding the black-armored man had all died, apart from the first one, who was killed by Su Zimo in a daze. The other three were killed by Su Zimo domineeringly in a head-on battle. Seeing this scene, the black-armored man in midair finally panicked. After killing the four Kuan race kings, Su Zimo glared at him right away. "Earth Kuan King, come and save me." The black-armored man's heart trembled as he hurriedly shouted. The Earth Kuan King frowned with an ugly expression. The black-armored man had a noble status as the Arch. He had been arranged by the Kuan Arch to protect his safety. Naturally, he could not let him suffer any harm. The Earth Kuan King let out a long roar, and the power of the heavenly abode behind him skyrocketed as it pressed down on immortal King Yulan. The Moon Witch King sensed the Earth Kuan King's intentions and also released secret techniques to tie down immortal King Yulan's energy. Immortal King Yulan retreated step by step. Her perfected grotto heaven was on the verge of collapse and could not hold on any longer. The Earth Kuan King left his perfected grotto heaven on the battlefield and continued to pressure immortal King Yulan. At the same time, he moved and instantly appeared behind Su Zimo, smashing down with his palm. Boom! Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon instantly collapsed. The Earth Kuan King was a peak king. Even without the protection of his grotto heaven, he could easily kill Su Zimo with just his physical body and bloodline. With a perfected grotto heaven, his Dao techniques were close to perfection, and he tempered his physical body and bloodline all year round. Naturally, he was far from what ordinary kings could compare to. Su Zimo was only a true spirit after all. The difference between the two was too great. The grade 12 creation Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon could not withstand it at all. Die! The Earth Kuan King's gaze was cold. After shattering Qinglian's bloodline phenomenon with one palm, his palm did not stop and continued to press down on Su Zimo's head. The power of this palm was so strong that it instantly collapsed the void and sealed all the space Su Zimo could dodge. Chapter 29:73. Su Zimo seemed to know that he could not avoid it, and could only wave his 8 arms to meet the Earth Kuan monarch's huge hand. "Ha!" The Earth Kuan monarch sneered. "A mantis trying to stop a chariot. That's all there is to it." Compared to his attack, Su Zimo's palm was too weak. At that moment, the Earth Kuan monarch's heart palpitated for no reason. The Earth Kuan monarch's heart skipped a beat as he continued attacking Su Zimo. At the same time, he was on guard and probed his surroundings. As far as he was concerned, only a peak king could threaten him. If it was not immortal King Yulan, there would be other experts spying nearby. However, he did not detect anything unusual with his divine consciousness. There were indeed 2 women in the distant void. However, they were only true spirits and were nothing to be afraid of. They seemed to be from the Sword World and Flower World. After dealing with immortal King Yulan and the 9th Sword Peak Master, he would kill the two of them. A few thoughts flashed through his mind as the Earth Kuan monarch's huge hand collided with Su Zimo's 8 arms. A huge force surged over, vast and majestic. Su Zimo's body shook violently. Even his 4 heads and 8 arms could not withstand it. Crack! Su Zimo's 6 arms and 3 heads exploded instantly. The Earth Kuan monarch broke his 4-headed, 8-armed state with a casual palm strike. Su Zimo's bones were broken and his organs were ruptured. He spat out blood and fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a lot of dust. A terrifying force surged into Qinglian's true body, destroying the vitality of this body. If not for Qinglian's true body having grown to the 12th stage and had a huge vitality and powerful blood qi, he would have died on the spot with just that palm strike. Su Zimo endured the pain and stared at the Earth Kuan monarch. There was no fear in his eyes. Instead, he was looking forward to it. This scene was not out of the Earth Kuan monarch's expectations. A true spirit was too weak in front of him. So what if it was a 12th stage creation Qinglian? So what if she had 4 heads and 8 arms? She could not withstand a single blow. The Earth Kuan monarch did not even look at Su Zimo. His huge hand did not stop and continued to press down, wanting to crush Su Zimo to death. In midair, the Earth Kuan monarch looked down from above, his white hair fluttering. With one hand, he heavily injured Su Zimo with indescribable ease. That was the battle strength of a pinnacle king. Overwhelming strength. The Earth Rock King stood proudly and said indifferently, in front of absolute power, Before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. It was because he heard a muffled drum sound. It was lifeless, indescribably sorrowful, devoid of life. These scenes flashed before the Earth Kuan monarch's eyes like a merry-go-round. Finally, he saw a white-haired, withered old man with a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were lifeless as he stood alone on an ancient planet. He was on the verge of death and could die at any moment. That old man, it was himself. That ancient star was the star he was standing on. The Earth Kuan monarch shook his head vigorously. When he opened his eyes again, the scene just now had already disappeared. Was it an illusion? The Earth Kuan monarch suddenly felt a tightness in his chest and took a deep breath instinctively. Even his breathing became extremely difficult. The Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something and extended his hands instinctively. There was not much flesh left on his palms. They were only skin and bones covered in old wrinkles. My lifespan. The Earth Kuan monarch was horrified and wanted to activate his essence spirit to release a dermic art. However, his essence spirit was already dried up and the blood qi in his body was declining. He no longer had any vitality. Even the Earth Kuan monarch's grand perfection grotto heaven above Immortal King Yulan's head had quietly dissipated. Immortal King Yulan heaved a sigh of relief and looked over. At this moment, the Moon Witch King was also looking at the Earth Kuan monarch in horror. Although the Earth Kuan monarch had already left his peak, his lifespan was still at least a few 100,000 years. Although he was a little old, he still maintained his powerful combat strength. At this moment, the Earth Kuan monarch was old and senile. The vitality in his body had dissipated, and his lifespan had been completely exhausted. How could such a huge change happen in such a short time? Although Immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King were fighting, the two of them had been paying attention to the situation here. The Earth Kuan monarch had already severely injured Sword Realm Su Zhu and was about to kill her when such a strange and terrifying scene suddenly occurred. In the entire process, no one attacked the Earth Kuan monarch at all. However, without any warning, the situation changed drastically. The Earth Kuan monarch suddenly fell into such a miserable state and could no longer survive. How could this be? At this moment, the Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something. Using the last of his strength, he slowly turned his head. The Earth Kuan monarch looked at Su Zimo, who had been severely injured by his palm and had fallen to the ground. His turbid eyes flickered with indignation as he squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. "It's you." Indeed, no one had attacked him just now. The only person he had come into contact with was only one, a true spirit that he disdained to look at. Immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King were also dumbfounded as they looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, in disbelief. The Earth Kuan monarch had ended up in such a state because of a true spirit? Su Zimo slowly stood up, his face somewhat pale. It had been a long time since he had suffered such serious injuries. After being severely injured by the Earth Kuan monarch's palm force, even the level 12 Qinglian's true body of a true spirit of creation took an extremely long time to recover. Su Zimo looked at the Earth Kuan monarch, who was not far away, and said indifferently, "I have comprehended 9 supreme abilities and only released 8 of them just now. I have been saving this fleeting youth for you." This fleeting youth, which had fused with the morning bell and evening drum, had completely transformed. However, under normal circumstances, this fleeting youth would not be able to threaten a king as long as he had the protection of a grotto heaven. Or perhaps, a king at his peak age could prop up his grotto heaven the moment he sensed the exhaustion of his lifespan and stop it. This was the suppression of one's realm and Tao technique. However, the Earth Kuan monarch was already past his prime and had left his grotto heaven in another battlefield to restrain Immortal King Yulan. The reason why Su Zimo had not used Moment of Youth was because he was waiting for such an opportunity. Hearing Su Zimo's words, the Earth Kuan monarch seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he opened his mouth slightly, as if he wanted to say something. You. He. Before the Earth Kuan monarch could finish his last sentence, his lifespan was exhausted, and he collapsed powerlessly on the ground, dead. Just like the Earth Kuan monarch, Immortal King Yulan had also heard the meaning behind Su Zimo's words just now. This fleeting moment of youth has always been reserved for you. In other words, this peak master of the sword realm, a true spirit at the Dongshu stage, had been eyeing the Earth Kuan monarch since the very beginning. Not only did this peak master Su want to save someone, but he also wanted to kill someone. Moreover, he wanted to kill a king at the peak. Immortal King Yulan felt her scalp go numb. This Suju really had guts. Even she did not dare to have such thoughts. However, Su Zhu had been eyeing the Earth Kuan monarch from the very beginning, wanting to kill this king at the peak. More importantly, he had succeeded. Chapter 2974. Su Zimo had successfully killed the Earth Rock King, but that didn't mean that he had the battle prowess to challenge a pinnacle king. Moreover, the Earth Rock King's palm strike wasn't easy for him either. Su Zimo tried his best to calm his breathing, relying on the self-healing power of the level 12 creation Qinglian to slowly circulate his qi and blood to heal his injuries. With the death of the Earth Rock King, the situation on the planet immediately changed. The Moon Witch King wanted to retreat. Even if he stayed here, it would be very difficult to kill Immortal King Yulan. As long as he left and spread the news of what happened today, he would be able to bring great trouble to the Sword Realm and the Flower Realm. He wasn't related to the Black-Armored Man, so there was no need for him to stay here. The Black-Armored Man seemed to have realized that the situation wasn't good, and he looked a little flustered. He was currently at the most critical juncture. If he left now, all his efforts would be in vain. However, if he didn't leave, there would be no one to protect him, and his life might be in danger. At this moment, Su Zhu dragged her heavily injured body into the air. She didn't head towards him, but rather towards the other side of the battlefield. The Black-Armored Man heaved a sigh of relief. He hesitated and didn't choose to leave immediately. Immortal King Yulan and the Moon Witch King, who were still fighting, immediately noticed Su Zimo's movements. The same thought flashed through their minds at the same time. What is he going to do? Immortal King Yulan's guess was right. Before Su Zimo made his move, he was already prepared to kill. He didn't just want to kill the 4 ordinary Kuan kings, but also the Earth Rock King and the Moon Witch King. Before Immortal King Yulan made her move, she had countless doubts and worries. She was worried that even if she saved them, they would be plagued with endless troubles in the future. Su Zimo naturally thought of this too, and all his worries could be resolved in one way. That was to kill the 4 ordinary immortal kings, the Black-Armored Man, and even the Earth Rock King and the Moon Witch King. He had to eliminate all possible troubles and disasters in advance so as to prevent future troubles. That was why Su Zimo released Qinglian's bloodline without hesitation. The Moon Witch King seemed to have sensed Su Zimo's killing intent and could not help but frown. This heavily injured true spirit still wanted to kill him? This Su Zhu had unleashed 9 supreme divine arts and was severely injured by the Earth Kuan King. How much battle strength did she have left? If it were any other time, this kind of true spirit, he could crush it with a single finger. It was just that with the Earth Kuan King dead, he also did not have the heart to persist in fighting. Hee. The Moon Witch King sneered and said, "The two of you have caused a great disaster. Just wait for the Kuan realm's revenge." His voice hadn't died away when the Moon Witch King and Immortal King Yulan collided head-on once again, and the Moon Witch King seized the opportunity to retreat, intending to leave this place. "Hold him," Su Zimo growled. Even without Su Zimo's reminder, Immortal King Yulan knew how important this matter was. Immortal King Yulan pushed her primordial spirit to the limit. Her chi and blood surged as she chased after him again. "Humph." The Moon Witch King snorted coldly and said, "Yulan, with your strength alone, you can't hold me back at all." In fact, Immortal King Yulan also knew that if the Moon Witch King wanted to escape this place, with her battle strength, she couldn't hold him back at all. The opposite was also true. If she wanted to leave now, the Moon Witch King couldn't hold her back either. There was indeed a gap between the two's battle strength, but it wasn't to the extent where they could suppress each other. "Hold his grotto, heaven." At this moment, Su Zimo spoke again. Immortal King Yulan still didn't understand. Even if she held back the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven with all her strength, what could she do? The most important reason why Su Zimo could kill the Earth Kuan King earlier was that the Earth Kuan King had underestimated him and was not on guard. Now, the Moon Witch King would definitely be on guard. Not to mention that Su Zimo couldn't unleash that supreme divine art that could reduce one's lifespan in a short period of time. Even if he still had the strength to unleash it, the Moon Witch King wouldn't give him the chance to succeed. As a pinnacle king, he naturally knew countless divine arts and secret techniques. Any one of them could break that supreme divine art. Although she was puzzled, Immortal King Yulan still didn't hesitate. She unleashed her full strength and unleashed many secret techniques in succession, temporarily locking down the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven. The Moon Witch King glanced at Su Zimo, full of mockery and contempt, and sneered, "You're just a true spirit, so you don't understand the battle between kings. So what if you've trapped my grotto heaven? Naive." Immortal King Yulan temporarily held back the Moon Witch King's grotto heaven, which also meant that her grotto heaven was also restricted to where it was and couldn't be used for the time being. She couldn't even be distracted. Once she was slightly distracted, the Moon Witch King's great perfection grotto heaven would break free. And at this moment, the Moon Witch King could leave at any time. Was she going to rely on the heavily injured Su Zimo to stop a pinnacle king? Su Zimo didn't reply. His left eye was pitch black, while his right eye was pure white. Two beams of light, one black and one white, shot out and landed on the Tai horsetail whisk in his hand. The jade handle was the shaft, the silver thread was the hair, and yin and yang were the ink. Su Zimo waved the Tai horsetail whisk, rapidly writing 12 strange characters in the void. The black characters were dark and cold. Ding Mao, Ding Si, Ding Wei, Ding Yu, Ding Hai, Ding Cho. The white characters were blazing with light. Jia Zi, Jia Su, Jia Shin, Jia Wu, Jia Chun, Jia Yin. Book 6 Ding, 6 Jia, Xing Xing, Deities and Ghosts, disband. Su Zimo shouted softly. The next moment, the 12 strange characters rapidly transformed. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into 12 figures with terrifying auras. The black characters transformed into 6 women in black battle armor. They had graceful figures and held battle swords in their hands. The white characters transformed into 6 men in white battle armor. They had tall and sturdy figures and held battle halberds in their hands. More importantly, the auras emanating from these 6 pairs of men and women had already reached the grotto heaven realm. This mystic technique actually originated from the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. It was also the strongest dermic formulation in the Tai section of the Taboo Mystic Manual, the technique repository. Back then, The Nine Heavens mystic fairy emperor had passed down this dharmic Tao in the form of 12 talismans, which were obtained by the Academy's patriarch. It was a pity that the 12 talismans were devoured completely when they encountered Su Zimo's illumination and nether-glow divine stones. Su Zimo had also used that exchange to comprehend the crux of this mystic technique. The so-called Six Ding Six Armor God referred to using the power of Yin and Yang to condense the Six Ding Yin God and Six Armor God to fight for oneself. The Six Ding Six Armor God that was condensed was closely related to the cultivator's essence spirit realm. Su Zimo released his 8-teeth divine power. His essence spirit realm had already reached the greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm. In other words, the Six Ding Six Armor God that he had just condensed was comparable to a peerless king in terms of physical strength. If the Moon Witch King had the protection of a perfected Grotto Heaven, the Six Ding Six Armor God at the greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm might not be a threat to him. However, his greater Grotto Heaven was temporarily trapped by the Yulan Immortal King. This created the best opportunity for the Six Ding Six Armor God to unleash their battle prowess to the extreme. The Six Ding Six Armor God quickly stepped forward and surrounded the Moon Witch King. The Moon Witch King's gaze flickered as he looked at the 12 figures with terrifying auras and murderous auras around him. Who is the naive one? Su Zimo asked indifferently. Then, without waiting for the Moon Witch King to reply, he pointed into the distance and said, "Kill." Chapter 29:75. In reality, the looting Liujia God that Su Zimo formed was not a Grotto Heaven realm culmination. This was because the looting Liujia God had no primordial spirit or bloodline. It only had a body formed by the power of Yin and Yang. Its physical strength was comparable to that of a peerless king. The Moon Witch King's Grotto Heaven perfection was indeed restrained. However, if his physical body and bloodline were powerful, he could also suppress the looting Liujia God. After all, there was still a realm between them. However, the Moon Witch King was from the Witch Tribe. The Witch Tribe's combat power was not ranked low among the 10,000 races. In terms of physical body and bloodline, they were ranked low, about the same as ordinary humans. The reason why the Witch Tribe could stand at the forefront of the 10,000 races was because of their many strange witchcraft and evil curses. This was also the Moon Witch King's specialty. However, these witchcraft and curses had no effect on the looting Liujia God. The looting Liujia God did not have primordial spirit bloodline. No witchcraft or curses could affect them. This invisible restraint smoothed out the difference between the realms between the two parties. The Moon Witch King released many witchcraft curses consecutively. They landed on the looting Liujia God, but did not cause any ripples. They did not affect the movements of the 12 gods at all. This was not the only strange thing about the looting Liujia God. Although the looting Liujia God did not have primordial spirits, these 12 gods seemed to have some remnant memories. They could fight on their own without Su Zimo controlling them. Moreover, the Liujia God and the looting Yin God cooperated with each other very well. It was as if they had fought side by side for countless years. Everything was connected and engraved into their souls. The Liujia God held a battle spear. His attacks were ferocious and powerful. His battle techniques were as heavy as a mountain. The looting Yin God held a battle sword. His attacks were soft and agile. His sword moves were all-pervasive and endless like flowing water. The Liujia God's every move was compatible with the power of the sun. The looting Yin God's sword moves were compatible with the power of the moon. The 12 gods surrounded the Moon Witch King. The Liujia God was at the forefront. The white battle armor on his body emitted a dazzling light like a scorching sun. The looting Yin God's sword light was as bright as the moon. The attacks of the 12 deities were a combination of hardness and gentleness. The sun and the moon followed suit, and the combination of Yin and Yang erupted with the most terrifying melee attacks. Su Zimo's eyelids twitched when he saw this. With his close combat strength, if he were to be surrounded by the 6 Ding and 6 Jia gods, he would probably have to use his 4 heads and 8 arms to fight them. The Moon Witch King wanted to say something, but he did not have the chance to do so. In just a few breaths, the looting Liujia Shun had already broken through his defenses. The battle spears pierced through his chest and abdomen, leaving behind several huge bloody holes. The sharp swords left deep wounds on his body, so deep that his bones could be seen. The Moon Witch King coughed up large mouthfuls of blood, his expression horrified. He was surrounded by the looting Liujiashun and didn't even have a chance to escape. The attacks of the looting Liujiashun were endless and impenetrable. Puff, puff, puff. The battle spear stabbed forward, and the battle sword slashed down. Bloody light continued to surge. This great peak stage immortal king of the witch race was besieged to death by Su Zimo's secret technique, the looting Liujiashun. By the time the looting Liujiashun retreated, the Moon Witch King had already lost his human form. He was cut into 8 pieces by the battle sword and stabbed beyond recognition by the battle spear. With the Moon Witch King dead, his perfected grotto heaven could not hold on either. Immortal King Yulan's grotto heaven instantly gained the upper hand and devoured the Moon Witch King's grotto heaven. Immortal King Yulan glanced at the minced meat on the ground and couldn't help but shake her head, speechless. The Moon Witch King had died too tragically. Before he could unleash his battle strength, he was swarmed by a group of puppet-like men and women, chopped to death with their blades and axes. Immortal King Yulan thought to herself, if she did not have the protection of her grotto heaven, it would be difficult for her to escape unscathed from this group of men and women. Immortal King Yulan took a deep look at Su Zimo. This battle had once again changed her understanding of this peak Master Su. Originally, her evaluation of Su Zimo was already extremely high. After all, Su Zimo's battle achievements in the evil demon battlefield were too dazzling. But now, she realized that this peak Master Su's performance in the evil demon battlefield was only the tip of the iceberg. In a great battle, 4 ordinary immortal kings of the Kuan race and 2 peak stage immortal kings had all died in his hands. Although she had played a crucial role in this, she was still extremely shocked by this peak Master Su's endless terrifying methods and his decisive nature. How bold and daring did he have to be to plot against peak stage immortal spirits to kill peak stage immortal kings? What was even more terrifying was that he had actually succeeded. The 6 immortal kings, including the Earth Kuan King and the Moon Witch King, had all died. All her previous worries had vanished into thin air. Of course, this matter was not over yet. After Su Zimo killed the Moon Witch King, he turned around and prepared to deal with the black-armored man. But when he turned around, he let out a soft exclamation of surprise. It seemed like there was no need for him to do anything. After the Moon Witch King died, the Sorcerer Tribe's runes on the chains on Xiaoyao's body also dissipated. Without these Sorcerer Tribe's runes, these chains would not be able to restrain Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao immediately broke free from the chains on his body. The qi and blood in his body surged, and even the hook piercing his shoulder blade was quickly squeezed out. The situation was changing. When the black-armored man saw the Moon Witch King die, he realized that something was wrong and wanted to escape. At the same time, Xiaoyao broke free from the chains. He was horrified to discover that his body seemed to be bound by an invisible force. He could not control it, let alone escape. At this moment, a huge Kuan appeared behind Xiaoyao. It was also covered with light spots that connected to form many tracks. This Kuan looked similar to the one behind the black-armored man, but its aura was much more ancient, and its body was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Then, a pair of wings grew out of this Kuan's body, and it vaguely transformed into the form of a rock. The 2 forms of the Kuan and rock appeared behind Xiaoyao at the same time. The 2 forms existed at the same time, and the light spots on them were denser. The tracks formed by the light spots intersected with each other. They were densely packed and looked extremely complicated. It was much more mysterious than the painting of the north behind the black-armored man. With the help of the strange image behind him, Xiaoyao's aura gradually changed, and it even revealed a hint of a heart-palpitating aura. This aura even caused the Qinglian bloodline in Su Zimo's body to ripple. The painting of the north was a secret technique of the Kuan race that was not passed down. Only the Kuan race could cultivate it. By cultivating the painting of the north, the Kuan race could possess a powerful devouring power. The black-armored man was using the painting of the north to forcefully devour the yin and yang energy in Xiaoyao's body and steal his rock bloodline. Now, when Xiaoyao broke free from the chains and the rock image appeared behind him, the situation suddenly changed. A terrifying, devouring power burst out from Carefree's body. Before the black-armored man could react, Xiaoyao had devoured the black-armored man's bloodline, True Yuan, and even his Dao fruit in the blink of an eye. End of chapter. Chapter 2976. Carefree was only at the heavenly human stage of the True One stage. However, when he broke free from the shackles, something seemed to have happened in his body. His Kuan Pong bloodline was activated, and a majestic Kuan Pong diagram appeared behind him. It instantly reversed and devoured the Dongshu stage man. Of course, bloodline suppression was part of the reason. However, even the Kuan Pong bloodline could not erupt with such a terrifying, devouring power. The wisp of aura that Carefree had just leaked out even made Su Zimo's 12th grade creation Qinglian bloodline ripple. In fact, when the creation Qinglian had grown to the peak of 12th grade, Su Zimo had not encountered a situation where his bloodline was suppressed. Even when facing the dragon race and the god race, which were at the top of the 10,000 races, his bloodline did not feel any pressure at all. Back then, Su Zimo had fallen to the bottom of the Blood Fiend Lake in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's Shura battlefield and had obtained a white tiger bone. When he absorbed and refined this white tiger bone, even the white tiger bloodline could not suppress Qinglian's bloodline. Carefree was indeed a forbidden Kuan Pong. However, the Kuan Pong had not reached the level where it could compete with a holy beast bloodline like the white tiger. Therefore, what surprised Su Zimo was that the bloodline aura that overflowed from Carefree's body just now could actually cause his Qinglian bloodline to ripple. Could this be the atavism that the Kuan King and the Moon Witch King were talking about? Su Zimo was deep in thought. He had heard the conversation between the Kuan King and the Moon Witch King clearly. However, he had never heard of the term atavism. Do you know about atavism, fellow Taoist Yulan? Su Zimo asked. I'm not sure. Immortal King Yulan shook her head as she cleaned up the battlefield. Fellow Taoist Su, you killed the Kuan King and the Moon Witch King. Their grotto heavens and storage bags are here. As she spoke, Immortal King Yulan handed over their grotto heavens and storage bags. Take it. Su Zimo shook his head and refused, saying, without you holding them back, I wouldn't have been able to kill them. I'll take the items from the 4 Kuan race kings. Su Zimo took the 4 ordinary Kuan race kings' grotto heavens and storage bags and quickly cleaned up the battlefield. Thank you, fellow Taoist Su. Immortal King Yulan was secretly delighted. Obtaining the paradises of 2 peak kings would be a great help to her cultivation. If she didn't have any heaven-defying fortuitous encounters, how could she have obtained the grotto heavens of 2 peak kings? Moreover, they were perfectly preserved grotto heavens. At this time, Baiming Shui and Mulian had already come out of their hiding place. Senior sister? Carefree's face was flushed, and he was sweating profusely. He looked dizzy and unconscious. When he opened his eyes and saw Kitsune, he shouted in surprise and joy. It's me. Kitsune stepped forward and frowned. She supported Xiaoyao and asked, How do you feel? I don't know, Xiaoyao answered in a daze. He's fine. Su Zimo glanced at him and said, He's only at the heavenly being stage, but he just absorbed a lot of energy. Not only did he devour the true spirit of a Dongshu stage cultivator, but he also absorbed too much yin and yang energy. He can't refine it in a short time. If it were any other race, Xiaoyao's body would have exploded long ago. It was because the Kuan Pong race's bloodline was too special that it could accommodate so much energy. In fact, this energy was enough for Xiaoyao to break through to the Dongshu stage. However, in the true self stage, especially after the heavenly being stage, to break through, not only did one need to accumulate energy, but they also needed to have enough understanding of Tao. The energy in Xiaoyao's body was enough, but his understanding of Tao was still lacking. That was why he was in such a situation. As long as Xiaoyao had enough time to continue cultivating and comprehending Tao, he would be able to refine and absorb the huge amount of energy in his body. Su Zimo had too many questions about Xiaoyao, But now is not the time to talk about the past. Let's leave here first, Suzimo said in a deep voice. The black-armored man earlier on was of the Arch, and his death would definitely alarm the Imperial Lord experts of the Kuan race. The longer they stayed here, the more dangerous it would be for them. Suzimo and Immortal King Yulan discussed for a while and decided to head to the flower world first. Immortal King Yulan had to send the Hell Spring water back to the flower world as soon as possible. Now that Suzimo was severely injured, it would be too dangerous for him to bring Kitsune and Xiaoyao back to the sword world. Furthermore, the flower world was closer to this place. It wouldn't be too late to make plans after they arrived at the flower world and recovered from their injuries. Immortal King Yulan summoned her immortal boat and carried everyone into the spatial tunnel, disappearing from the day and night land and speeding towards the flower world. A day later, near the day and night land, the starry sky was deep. All of a sudden, a huge shadow shrouded over, covering the skies. Immediately after, two gigantic eyes appeared in the skies, emitting a shuddering aura as they surveyed the surroundings. Eventually, they landed on an ancient star. On that star, one could still vaguely see traces of battle and remnant bloodline aura. "How dare you kill my son?" A deep voice reverberated through the starry sky. That pair of eyes was filled with endless rage and killing intent. That pair of eyes scanned the surroundings for a long time, trying to find clues to obtain an answer. However, after a long time, he found nothing. A moment later, a bloodied mouth suddenly appeared in the firmaments and devoured the star before vanishing gradually. That terrifying aura also disappeared along with it. More than 10 days later, Suzimo and the others arrived at the flower world. Immortal King Yulan settled Suzimo and the others on the Qinglian star before saying, "I'll hand the spring water to the Imperial Lords of the Flower World first before inviting everyone to the 100 Flowers Hall of the Flower World for a chat." Suzimo pondered for a moment and said, "There's no need." Immortal King Yulan was confused. "Fellow Taoist Su, you've helped the Flower World greatly this time round. As long as I report the truth, the Flower World will definitely reward you handsomely." Suzimo glanced at Carefree, who was still unconscious, and shook his head slightly. "My disciple has a special identity. Please help me hide it, and don't leak it, fellow Taoist." Carefree was the only clue about the death of the black-armored man. Once his identity and bloodline were exposed, it would definitely attract the Imperial Lords of the Kuan race. Immortal King Yulan knew how powerful it was and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, don't worry about that." After pausing for a moment, Suzimo continued, "As for the trip to the day and night land this time round, please don't mention Dark North and I, Immortal King Yulan." Immortal King Yulan frowned slightly and asked, "Fellow Taoist Su, what are you worried about?" Suzimo remained silent. There were some guesses that he could neither clarify nor explain to Immortal King Yulan. It was just a precaution. Immortal King Yulan pondered for a moment before nodding. "No problem. However, I'm the only one who knows about this favor." Immortal King Yulan cupped his fists before turning to leave. Chapter 29:77. After a few days, news came from the flower world that the danger of the Nether Calamity was temporarily resolved. After being unconscious for a few days, Carefree slowly woke up. However, Carefree's condition was still very bad. There was too much energy accumulated in his body. With his current cultivation, it was difficult for him to digest it. His face was red, and he was a little delirious. The aura in his body was extremely violent. Over the past few days, Suzimo's body that was severely injured by a Peak King had already recovered thanks to the recovery capabilities of the Grade 12 Creation Green Lotus. Suzimo checked on Carefree's condition. Carefree wasn't injured, so the Lotus Finger was useless against him. Only by guiding the yin and yang energy in Carefree's body could he turn the situation around. It could even be a blessing in disguise. I have a scripture here. Listen carefully and comprehend it according to the inherited memories of your race. In the cave, Suzimo passed the scripture of the yin-yang talisman scripture to Carefree. Kitsune also listened at the side. The yin-yang talisman scripture only had 600 words. Even Suzimo had only comprehended 1/10 of it. If it was someone else, they might not be able to comprehend it in a short time, even if they heard the scripture. However, Carefree had the Kuan Pong bloodline and inherited the memories of the Kuan Pong race. He was born with the ability to control yin and yang energy. After hearing the scripture, Carefree's aura gradually stabilized. The yin-yang talisman scripture combined with his inherited memories helped him resolve the crisis. The Kuan Pong diagram filled with light dots appeared behind Carefree again. Baiming Shui looked at the Kuan Pong painting and couldn't help but recall the Northern Sea painting she saw on that star. She fell into deep thought. Immediately after, Carefree's body emitted that ancient and terrifying bloodline aura again. It was even purer and stronger than when he was on that ancient planet. The yin-yang talisman scripture was of great help to Carefree. It even pushed his bloodline one step further on the path of atavism. Su Zimo saw that Carefree's condition had stabilized and let out a sigh of relief. These days, he was not in a hurry to leave. He discovered that the Qinglian clan on the Qinglian planet had a weak bloodline and a slow cultivation speed. When he cultivated on the Qinglian star, he would attract a large amount of heaven and earth yuan qi and gather it around the Qinglian star. If the Qinglian clan cultivated by his side, they would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. In reality, as long as a plant being cultivated by his side, they would receive unimaginable benefits. Cultivating on Qinglian planet for a period of time could be considered to have brought some opportunities to the living beings on Qinglian planet. 1 month later, Carefree had already recovered to 70 to 80%. Thank you, Master. Carefree ran to Su Zimo, his face full of joy. Although he hadn't made a breakthrough in his realm, his body had grown several times in a short period of time with the guidance of the yin-yang charm scripture and his own inherited memories. Carefree's body was originally like a lake. The lake was naturally unable to contain the sudden influx of torrential water. But now, Carefree's body was like an ocean that could contain all the rivers flowing into the sea. Next, as long as Carefree continued to cultivate and comprehend Tao techniques, he would have a chance to make consecutive breakthroughs and enter the Dongshu realm. What did you experience after ascending? Seeing that Carefree was fine, Su Zimo asked. Xiaoyao recounted everything that had happened to him after he ascended to the immortal realm. Carefree's luck was not bad. After ascending, he directly landed in the Kuan realm. However, he was very careful and never exposed his Kuan Pong bloodline. What he revealed was only the Kuan bloodline, no different from the other clansmen. In the Kuan realm, he continued to cultivate and successfully entered the true self realm. However, just a few years ago, during a competition in the Kuan realm, a wisp of his Kuan Pong bloodline leaked out and was detected by an imperial emperor of the Kuan realm. Then, the imperial emperor of the Kuan realm arranged for the most talented arch under his command to use the Kuan Peng's cultivation to break through and devour his Kuan Pong bloodline. Su Zimo frowned secretly when he heard that. The entire process didn't sound like much. However, he still had some doubts in his heart. On the surface, this arrangement was for the imperial emperor of the Kuan realm to kill Carefree and steal his bloodline for his own child. However, from the perspective of the Kuan realm, this risk was too great. The gains did not make up for the losses. This was because there was a high chance of failure when devouring a bloodline. Once it failed, the arch would at most become a king. However, the Kuan realm would lose a taboo with unlimited potential. In the Kuan realm, the awakening of a taboo Kuan Pong should be the best way to nurture it as the future hope of the Kuan realm and not destroy it. Moreover, the appearance of the moon which king on that star was also a little strange. What did this have to do with the sorcerer realm? Or was it just a coincidence? Do you know what atavism is? Su Zimo asked. Carefree shook his head and said, I'm not sure either. When I broke free from the chains on that star, a bunch of unfamiliar memories suddenly appeared in my mind. I felt as if an extremely ancient power was awakening in my body. Under the push of this power, I devoured the arch. I was confused throughout the entire process. The three of them had not seen each other for a long time and chatted a lot. After Carefree ascended to the Kuan realm, he had always been very careful. Now that he saw Su Zimo and Kitsune, it was as if he had seen his family. He finally felt at ease and did not have to be on tenterhooks. Carefree also had a special dependence on Kitsune. As for Baiming Shui, She not only saw Xiaoyao as her junior, but also as her own younger brother. The two disciples often sparred and discussed the Tao together. Senior sister, you can try to cultivate the painting of the north. That Kuren realm secret technique is very powerful. I'm a human. Can I cultivate it? Of course. Senior sister, your bloodline phenomenon is the giant Kuren of the north. You can use it to manifest the painting of the north. It's a pity that I can't teach you my Kuan Peng painting. Many of the runes in it originate from my inherited memories. Even I can't control it. In Carefree's heart, the Kuren realm's secret technique was not as important as Kitsune. Carefree imparted the painting of the north to Kitsune without holding back. Su Zimo was heartened to see how harmonious and affectionate his two disciples were. Even he did not expect that the interaction between his two disciples would allow Kitsune to integrate many Dao techniques and gradually comprehend her own sword Dao. Su Zimo had originally planned to leave the Qinglian planet and send Kitsune and Carefree to the sword world. However, he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he chose to go into seclusion on the Qinglian planet and settle down. The great wasteland world was already covered in dark clouds. A storm was coming. Chapter 2978. The Great Wilderness Domain. After so many years of war, the Great Wilderness had changed drastically. The north, south, and west regions were all under Tsang's rule. Only the eastern barren territory was barely holding on. 800 years ago, the two demon kings of the eastern wilderness, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon Emperor, had surrendered, which made the eastern wilderness situation worse. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon Emperor were the right-hand men of Demon Emperor Shui Dai. The departure of these two demon emperors was a huge blow to the eastern wilderness. More than 800 years ago, in the battle against Tsang, eastern wilderness relied on the appearance of a desolate marshal to win by luck and gain some breathing room. But all the living beings in the great wilderness knew that the eastern wilderness could not hold on for long. It was inevitable that the great wilderness would be swallowed by Tsang. It was said that Araki Takashi had just become a demon emperor and could not affect the overall situation. Also, in the war 800 years ago, Emperor Qing Yin and the other top experts did not appear. On this day, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Great Peng Demon Monarch, Spirit Horn Demon Monarch, Fei Lian Demon Monarch, Huado Demon Monarch, and a dozen ordinary monarch beasts were standing respectfully at the entrance of a palace. They had received news that Emperor Qing Yin would descend on the great wilderness today. Outside the palace, there were many demon kings and countless demon race soldiers gathered. It was a sea of people, and banners were fluttering in the wind. Not long after, a void gate suddenly split open in the sky, and more than 100 figures walked out from it. Although there were only 100 of them, which was incomparable to the hundreds of millions of demon race soldiers below, the moment they appeared, the world fell silent. The aura emitted by these hundreds of figures was too terrifying. The moment they appeared, the living beings below felt as if their throats were choked by a pair of invisible hands. They could not breathe and were as silent as cicadas in winter. The leader wore a dark green robe. He had a head full of green hair and a fair face. His eyes were bright and full of vigor. He looked down at the living beings beneath his feet from above. No one dared to look him in the eyes. This was Emperor Qing Yin. Whoosh! All the living beings in the mountains seemed to be unable to withstand some kind of pressure, and all of them fell to their knees. Even Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Great Peng Demon Monarch, and the other peerless demon monarchs who were standing at the entrance of the hall knelt down respectfully. Emperor Qing Yin nodded slightly and smiled. He seemed to be very satisfied with this scene. Beside him stood 7 peak imperial emperors, 5 men and 2 women. Some had calm expressions, some had ferocious looks, some had murderous auras, and some had seductive looks. These 7 were the 7 constellation demon emperors under Emperor Qing Yin. Behind the 7 constellations Fey Emperor were a dozen ordinary imperial emperors and dozens of Fey kings. These demon monarchs looked young. They looked around as if they were curious about everything around them. Emperor Qing Yin led the group down from the sky. Step by step, it was as if there were stairs beneath his feet. The entire process was very slow, but from beginning to end, Not a single one of the trillions of living beings in the vast desolation dared to raise their heads to speak. They all obediently knelt in place. Any strange movement at this moment could lead to a fatal disaster. Before this, a demon emperor had raised his head to take a peek, but Emperor Qing Yin had noticed and killed him on the spot by a constellation demon emperor behind him. Emperor Qing Yin and the rest arrived at the hall. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai lowered his head subconsciously. He was almost kneeling on the ground, and his bloodline had stopped circulating. This was the suppression of bloodline. Although he was from the Dragon Clan, in the face of the Azure Dragon Clan's bloodline, he still involuntarily chose to submit. Oh? Emperor Qing Yan's gaze fell on Dragon Emperor Huang Hai. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Only now do you want to submit?" Hearing this, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai's heart skipped a beat, and he broke out in cold sweat. "Lord Qing Yin, I know my mistake." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai hurriedly kowtowed and admitted his mistake. Great Peng Demon Emperor and Kuei Ox Demon Emperor beside him were also trembling in fear. Emperor Qing Yan's aura was too strong. Although they were only one level apart, their combat strength was worlds apart. Emperor Qing Yin could easily tear Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the other two to pieces. Emperor Qing Yin did not speak. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the other two were so scared that they did not dare to look up. They were sweating profusely as they endured the silent torture. After a while, Emperor Qing Yin chuckled and said, "It's good that you know your mistake. I'll give you a chance. I won't let you down, Lord Qing Yin." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said quickly. Emperor Qing Yin walked into the hall and sat in the middle. He then said calmly, "Rise." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the rest lowered their heads as if they had been pardoned. They moved to the hall. "Where's Nine?" Emperor Qing Yin looked around and asked, "Why are there fewer demon emperors?" The spirit-horned demon monarch quickly recounted the battle that took place 800 years ago in detail. As soon as spirit-horned demon emperor finished, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said, "Lord Qing Yin, Great Peng, Kuei Nyo, and I did not participate in that battle. When fellow cultivator Spirit Horn and the rest were running, retreating, we even stopped Araki Takashi and the others from chasing after them. Back then, when Dragon Emperor Huang Hai stood aside, he had already thought of this scene. If he had killed the living beings of Tsang continent that day, it would be difficult to explain to Emperor Qing Yin now. He might even lose his life. Actually, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai was overthinking it. To Emperor Qing Yin, the living beings of the vast wilderness were like ants to him. No matter how many of them died, he did not care. However, Demon Emperor Nine was from Tsang continent after all, and was once his subordinate. "Araki Takashi?" Emperor Qing Yin murmured expressionlessly. "Lord Qing Yin." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said in a deep voice, "This Araki Takashi is nothing to be afraid of. In this battle, I will personally avenge Nine. I will cut off Araki Takashi's head and give it to Lord Qing Yin." Great Peng Demon Emperor also said, "Lord Qing Yin will definitely be able to kill Shuedai and conquer the eastern wilderness." "Kill Shuedai?" Emperor Qing Yin smiled and shook his head. "What do you know? I have been keeping her alive to give her enough time to recover. I am using her to train my Tao so that I can improve. If I want to flatten the eastern wasteland, as long as I mobilize enough power, I can do it at any time. Killing that Shuedai will be easy." Great Peng Demon Emperor smiled. So Lord Qing Yin did not take her seriously at all. She is just a whetstone. Dragon fighting in the wild. Emperor Green Flame said slowly, "Only through constant battles can I fully activate my green dragon bloodline and push my Tao techniques to the extreme." Saying this, Emperor Qing Yin stood up. His eyes were filled with battle intent. His blood chi surged and dragon chi circled around him. A tiny little butterfly was actually able to resist me until now. Let me see which one of us will be able to take that step first. Emperor Qing Yan's gaze seemed to pierce through the void and landed on Butterfly Valley in the eastern wilderness. Chapter 2979. Eastern Wilderness, Butterfly Valley. Dayu sensed something and slowly opened her eyes. She knew that Emperor Qing Yin had returned. Fortunately, she had obtained some origin stones from Su Zimo. After 800 years of cultivation, her injuries had healed and she had returned to her peak. Thinking of Su Zimo, a smile gradually appeared on Dai Yu's face. She really did not expect that a young man from a small town in Tianhuang mainland would grow to such a level today. He would really ascend to the upper world and follow her footsteps. She had acknowledged and admired Su Zimo in the past, but she did not have many other feelings for him. She had never thought that the two of them would meet again one day. But 800 years ago, when she turned back and saw that strange yet familiar figure in Butterfly Valley, a ripple appeared in her heart. That young man was here. After going through so many hardships, the young man had changed a lot. His cultivation, temperament, identity. Only his eyes were still bright and sincere, just like when they first met. What are you thinking about? At this moment, a voice came from beside her. Dai Yu did not explain. She only looked sideways at Wu Dao's main body, who was walking over and asked, "You broke through?" Even she could not clearly see the cultivation realm of the martial Dao body. She could only vaguely feel that Wu Dao's main body seemed to have changed again.
Yes.
Wu Dao nodded and said, "I've already become a quasi-emperor, but I can't go any further." In fact, as early as 200 years ago, after he refined the many grotto heavens that he had obtained after the battle, Wu Dao's domain and Yunwu Grotto Heaven had cultivated a trace of world power and became a quasi-emperor. He still had the world fragments of 6 ordinary Fey Emperors and 1 peerless Fey Emperor. As long as he refined these world fragments, his strength would be enough to help him reach the Emperor realm. But the difference between a quasi-emperor and an emperor was not only in strength, but also in Dao techniques. If he could not improve his Dao techniques, he would not be able to reach the Emperor realm. Wu Dao's main body not only needed time, but also more Dao techniques to strengthen the absorption and refinement of Dao techniques. He had already thought of a place to go, but he did not have time now. The Eastern Wilderness crisis had arrived. He had sensed Emperor Azure Flame's arrival as well. The Azure Dragon bloodline was indeed terrifying. As soon as it descended upon the great wasteland domain, all living beings felt an enormous pressure. Even the Azure Dragon Holy Soul on the prison-suppressing cauldron showed signs of awakening. The few monster monarchs from the East Baron also appeared above the Butterfly Valley. The Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and the others looked solemn as they looked toward the west of the Grand Wilderness. They were not unfamiliar with this situation. With Emperor Qing Yan's return, a huge battle was unavoidable. But this time, it was slightly different from the past. The East Baron's Dragon Monarch Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon Monarch had already submitted to Nong. Among the peerless demonic emperors, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demonic Emperor were the strongest. Even the Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and the Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor could not gain the upper hand against them. Moreover, Song had more than one peerless demon emperor. In the west of the Great Wilderness, dark clouds gathered and surged. Dai Yu's expression was calm as she stepped forward. The armies of Tsong and the Great Wilderness gathered at the border. Emperor Qing Yin stood in the air. Behind him, besides the 7 constellations demonic emperors and a dozen ordinary demonic emperors, there were also some young monster monarchs from Tong. These monster monarchs were all here for the first time. Everything in the Great Wilderness domain was new to them. Emperor Qing Yin pointed at the billions of living beings under his feet and said, "Do you see that? All of them, be it monster monarchs or demonic emperors, are just living beings that we've reared. These living beings will never be able to touch our world." The young monster monarchs nodded with excitement in their eyes. Emperor Qing Yin said casually, "When the battle starts, be careful when you go down. Don't get killed by these animals." At this moment, a group of demonic emperors appeared above the Eastern Baron. The Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and the others' hearts sank when they saw the situation. Even if Dai Yu could fight Emperor Qing Yin and the 7 constellations demonic emperors alone, there were more than 10 peerless demon emperors and more than 40 ordinary ones. On the Eastern Baron side, the Divine Elephant Demon Emperor, Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor, Baizei Demon Emperor, Sky-Bearing Emperor, Black Snake Demon Emperor, and Araki Takashi only had 6 emperors. Emperor Qing Yin looked at Dai Yu immediately and nodded. He smiled and said, "You didn't disappoint me. You've recovered. Very good." Dai Yu ignored him. Her expression was cold. At this moment, a beautiful girl behind Emperor Qing Yin stepped forward. She had a seductive body and a charming expression. She smiled and asked, "Which one is Araki Takashi?" "Be careful." Nine-tailed demon emperor's voice sounded in Wu Dao's mind. "This is Heart Constellation Demon Emperor, one of the 7 constellations. She's also a fox and is good at seduction." "What are you whispering about?" "Hee hee, I heard everything." Heart Constellation Demon Emperor chuckled. Her watery eyes fell on Wu Dao's body and rippled. She said softly, "Brother Araki Takashi, why don't you come to me?" Heart Constellation Demon Emperor's voice was seductive and charming. It was as if she could evoke the deepest desire in one's heart. However, Wu Dao's eyes were deep and calm. He was already a quasi-emperor. At his peak state, such seduction could not affect his Dao heart at all. The Heart Sutra demon the Arch originally wanted to take him down a notch and use a bewitching technique to lure that desolate marshal over. Unexpectedly, Araki Takashi was wearing a cold silver mask and was completely unmoved. Wu Dao's body was also sizing up Emperor Qing Yin and the 7 constellations demon emperors. The 7 constellations demon emperors all had different bodies. Heart Constellation Demon Emperor was from the fox race. However, she was slightly different from the 9-tailed demon emperor. Wu Dao's body smelled a wisp of the bloodline of dragons on Heart Constellation Demon Emperor. The others were the same. In the end, Wu Dao's body finally looked at Emperor Qing Yin. He was very strong. If Wu Dao's body were to fight him now, he probably would not stand a chance at all. Moreover, amongst all the imperial monarchs he faced, only Imperial Monarch Qing Yin could make him feel such enormous pressure. "Lord Heart Constellation, this person doesn't know what's good for him. Leave him to me." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai bowed and said, "All right." Heart Constellation Demon Emperor nodded. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai stood out and looked at Wu Dao's body opposite him. He puffed out his chest and regained some of his usual composure. "Araki Takashi, you were disrespectful to Tsong and spoke rudely the other day. I did not attack you because Shui Dai protected you." Dragon Emperor Huang Hai said coldly, "You will definitely die in today's battle." "What did he say?" Constellation Horn Demon Emperor of the 7 constellations asked. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai bowed and answered. He said that Tsong does not represent the bigger picture, and said that he is the bigger picture. "Ha!" The 7 constellations Demon Emperors sneered. "Is it funny?" Daiyu asked calmly. The skies suddenly quietened down. The air seemed to have frozen. Everyone could feel the killing intent from Daiyu. She was facing a terrifying expert who could fight Emperor Qing Yin head-on. In the next moment, Daiyu attacked. That seemingly white and weak palm pierced through the air and slapped down on those demon emperors who had mocked Wu Dao's body. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the clouds changed color. A great battle broke out. Chapter 2980. Roar. As Daiyu attacked, a deafening roar sounded in the sky. The azure dragon's roar suppressed all races. All living beings in the sky and on the ground felt their souls tremble when they heard the dragon's roar. This was bloodline suppression, a roar from the top of all races. Just one roar was enough to shake the earth and mountains. The entire great wilderness domain trembled. Rivers flowed backward, and mountains collapsed. He was a peak sovereign emperor, and the strongest among peak sovereign emperors at that. A casual roar from him could produce such a terrifying might. The fist and palm collided. Boom! There was a loud explosion. The void exploded, and a dazzling ball of light burst out from where the fist and palm collided. It quickly spread in all directions and destroyed everything. The first time the two of them clashed, it created a scene of destruction. Daiyu and Imperial Emperor Qing Yin suddenly disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in space outside the Great Wilderness Domain. This was the battlefield of peak Imperial Emperors. The 7 constellations Demon the Arch followed closely behind and arrived in space. However, the 7 constellations Demon the Arch was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he stood nearby and watched. Imperial Emperor Qing Yin wanted to use Daiyu to temper his bloodline. Unless Imperial Emperor Qing Yin encountered danger, the 7 of them could just stand by and watch. Imperial Emperor Qing Yan's aura surged as he bathed in azure flames. 1,000-feet-long azure dragon with sharp claws and horns could be vaguely seen behind him. Its eyes were like torches. Behind Daiyu, a blood-winged butterfly of 10 feet in size appeared. Compared to the 1,000-feet-long azure dragon, the blood-winged butterfly was too small. However, in terms of aura, the blood-winged butterfly was not at a disadvantage at all. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 of them clashed again. Killing intent soared into the sky, and battle intent surged. The starry sky was collapsing, creating countless strange scenes. The divine dragon circled and the butterfly danced. Lightning flashed, stars shattered, and black holes appeared. However, the 2 peak Imperial Emperors were so powerful that even the black holes could not devour them. The moment the black holes appeared, they were shattered by the 2 of them again. The battle was so intense that blood mist burst out the moment the 2 of them clashed. Both of them were injured at the same time. However, this sort of injury was nothing to the 2 of them. This was the first time Wu Dao's main body saw Daiyu attack with her full strength. Back in Tianhuang mainland, Daiyu's spirit was merely a manifestation of his bloodline phenomenon. It was far from Daiyu's true combat strength. The 2 peak Imperial Emperors fought in the starry sky. Bloodlines, secret skills, and Dao techniques were clashed. The starry sky outside the Grand Desolation world had already been struck to the point of being riddled with holes. A rain of light suffused the air, and it transformed into an ocean of Dao arts that obliterated and destroyed everything. Emperor Qing Yan's aura was majestic and unparalleled in the world. Daiyu's main body was Yu was Yuemini Yu's main Yu was Yu. Daiyu, Yu's main body was Yu main body. If their battle took place in the Great Desolation Domain, the entire Great Desolation Domain would most likely be destroyed. The martial Dao body retracted his gaze. With his current combat strength, he was still unable to intervene in a battle of this level. As long as he could stabilize the Great Wilderness, he would be able to relieve Daiyu's pressure. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Rock Demon Monarch did not want to face their old friends. They did not look at Divine Elephant Demon Monarch and the others. Instead, they rushed towards Wu Dao body. "Let me see what you're capable of," Dragon Emperor Huang Hai roared. His blood essence surged as he activated his bloodline phenomenon. Great Rock also activated his bloodline phenomenon. He turned into a beam of golden light and was faster than Dragon Emperor Huang Hai. He was the first to reach Wu Dao. They had seen Wu Dao's main body fight before. Wu Dao's main body had killed a peerless Imperial Emperor. They did not dare to underestimate him. Spirit Horn Imperial Emperor, Phalian Imperial Emperor, Battle Imperial Emperor, and other peerless Imperial Emperors also attacked the Divine Elephant Imperial Emperor and Nine-Tailed Imperial Emperor. Normal Imperial Emperors were also in a huge battle. No matter which battlefield it was, the number of demon thearchs in Song Continent far exceeded that of East Wilderness. As soon as the battle started, Eastern Wilderness was at a disadvantage. The Divine Elephant Imperial Emperor, Nine-Tailed Imperial Emperor, Baizhe Imperial Emperor, and the others were besieged by other experts. The golden light arrived in an instant. If it were other peerless Imperial Emperors, they would not be able to withstand this move. This was the Great Rock Race's innate ability. They could push their speed to the limit. Creatures of the same level would be killed on the spot if they reacted too slowly. Wu Dao's main body raised his hand calmly and opened his palm. He was not fast, but for some reason, just as the golden light arrived in front of him, his palm grabbed it tightly and did not move at all. Great Rock Imperial Emperor's figure appeared. He was holding a golden spear in his hand. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. Araki Takashi was able to withstand his attack and hold his imperial weapon with his bare hands. What kind of body was that? What kind of power was that? Roar! Great Rock Imperial Emperor roared into the sky. He used his sound domain secret technique and revealed his main body. Whoosh! Great Rock Imperial Emperor's body trembled. Countless golden wings fell from his body. They turned into thousands of arrows and pierced toward Wu Dao's main body. These golden wings blocked all the escape routes for Wu Dao's main body. At the same time, a divine dragon that was thousands of feet long appeared behind him. It looked down and reached out its huge dragon claws. Roar! In the face of the two peerless Imperial Emperors' attacks, Wu Dao's main body suddenly spoke. He also used his sound domain's secret technique, Sound of All Spirits. The roar of billions of living beings resounded throughout the world. Even Emperor Qing Yin and Dai Yu, who were fighting outside the Great Wasteland domain, looked over. The sound of all spirits exploded. The two people closest to Wu Dao's main body were naturally affected the most. They were Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Imperial Emperor. Their bodies shook violently. Their eyes widened. Their eyes were instantly bloodshot. Their teeth loosened. Their ears buzzed, and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Their faces were filled with astonishment. If they hadn't released their sound domain's secret technique just now and blocked a lot of the damage, just this sound domain's secret technique alone would have caused them to bleed from their 7 orifices. This person seemed to be even stronger than 800 years ago. As soon as the thought crossed their minds, Wu Dao's main body counterattacked. It was unstoppable, like a volcano erupting or an ocean bursting its banks. Wu Dao's main body exerted force. The golden spear in his hand trembled violently. Great Rock Imperial Emperor was also affected by the sound of all spirits. He was slightly distracted and could not hold on to the spear. It was instantly snatched back by Wu Dao's main body. Just as he reacted, the golden spear shot back at him at an even more terrifying speed. Great Rock Imperial Emperor frantically activated his divine sense. He tried to control his natal monarch weapon while dodging desperately. Although he managed to avoid being hit in the vital parts, his wings were still penetrated by his own monarch weapon. Blood gushed out like a fountain. More terrifyingly, Wu Dao's main body's fist followed closely behind the golden spear. Chapter 2981. This punch contained Wu Dao's techniques and Wu Dao's will. With an unstoppable aura, it pierced through the heavens and shattered everything. The numerous oncoming golden arrows were all broken. Great Rock Demon Emperor felt an extremely tragic aura coming towards him, almost suffocating him. There was nowhere to run. This fist technique, this power, should not exist in this world. Great Rock Demon Emperor raised his arms and pushed his bloodline to the limit, forming a bloodline vision behind him. A golden winged rock shone brightly and spread its wings, pouncing towards Wu Dao's original body. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion shook the earth and mountains. Flesh and blood splattered and bones were broken. Great Rock Demon Emperor's bloodline vision was destroyed by Wu Dao's original body with a single punch. His arms were unable to withstand this punch and were instantly blasted apart, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Whoosh! The power from Wu Dao's original body's punch surged into Great Rock Demon Emperor's body, destroying his vitality. Great Rock Demon Emperor wailed, and his golden wings fell off as he retreated rapidly. On the other side, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai's dragon claw also descended. Wu Dao's original body was fearless against two enemies. He threw a backhand punch at the ferocious dragon claw. Bang! Roar! Dragon Emperor Huang Hai let out a blood-curdling scream as his giant dragon claw was shattered into pieces. The tremendous impact had even turned his dragon body into a bloody mess. In close combat, no one could withstand Wu Dao's original body's punch. Boom! Boom! The two peerless demon emperors did not dare to hesitate and immediately held up their own worlds. In their own worlds, they quickly recovered their vitality and healed their injuries. Wu Dao's original body's eyes were deep and unfathomable. He did not give them a chance to catch their breaths. Whoosh! Wu Dao's original body released Wu Dao's purgatory. Almost instantly, it enveloped a large area of the battlefield. Not only Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Great Rock Demon Emperor, Spirit Horn Demon Emperor, Fei Lian Demon Emperor, Huado Demon Emperor, and more than 10 other peerless demon emperors were all trapped in Wu Dao's purgatory. In an instant, raging flames soared into the sky. 800 years ago, the perfected Wu Dao's purgatory was able to burn and refine many lesser mastery worlds. Now that Wu Dao's purgatory had improved, even the greater mastery worlds of many peerless demon emperors could not withstand it. Among the peerless demon emperors, there were differences in strength. Some peerless demon emperors' worlds that could not even last for a few breaths' time. Without the protection of the world, the flesh and blood of the peerless Fey Emperor could not withstand the power of the purgatory of martial arts and was quickly burned to ashes. Peerless monarch beasts like Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Monarch Dapeng were barely holding on. They kept unleashing their force of the realm to resist the martial purgatory. Charge out, or we'll all die here. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai roared. More than 10 peerless demon emperors who were trapped in the purgatory joined forces and unleashed streams of majestic world energy to attack the barrier of Wu Dao's purgatory. Boom, boom, boom. Wu Dao's purgatory kept shaking. Mysterious runes appeared on the barrier, condensing endless Dao and laws. It was not that easy to break through Wu Dao's purgatory. In the process, another 2 peerless demon emperors died in the Sea of Flames. Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor were also trapped. However, under the control of Wu Dao's original body, the flames in the purgatory did not cause any harm to them. Divine Elephant Demon Emperor and Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor were shocked. Their battle strength could be ranked among the top among the peerless demon emperors. They might be able to gain the upper hand against Spirit Horn Demon Emperor and the others, but they would not be able to kill them. Demon emperors had a world to protect them, so it was difficult for them to die. Who would have thought that peerless demonic emperors would fall one after another right before their very eyes? Their corpses were incinerated into nothingness. Song and Eastern Wilderness had fought many times. Blood flowed like rivers, and corpses piled up like mountains. But most of those who died were demon soldiers, demon generals, and some demon kings. The number of demon emperors who died in the battle was not as many as Wu Dao's original body had killed in the span of a dozen breaths. Even the group of ordinary demonic emperors were shocked by the scene before them. In the sky outside Great Wilderness Domain, 7 constellation demon emperors' attention was originally on Emperor Qing Yen and Daiyu. Now, he was also alerted by the commotion in Great Wilderness Domain. This Araki Takashi is indeed something. Constellation Demon Emperor frowned. His true form was a flood dragon. Heart Constellation Demon Emperor swayed her fox tail and murmured, "What Dao technique does this person cultivate? I've never seen it before." Constellation Demon Emperor said in a low voice, "The situation doesn't look good. If this continues, the juniors we brought will not be able to escape death." Of course, they did not care about the lives of Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon Emperor. But some juniors from Tsong, even if they were just demon kings, were far more important to 7 Constellation Demon Emperor than Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the others. "You guys stay here and guard the young master. I'll go and kill this Araki Takashi." Constellation Demon Emperor said coldly. "Don't." Heart Constellation Demon Emperor giggled and said, "This person is interesting. Let me play with him." As they spoke, Constellation Demon Emperor and Heart Constellation Demon Emperor both headed toward the battlefield of Great Wilderness Domain. Daiyu noticed this, and her aura rose again. A huge blood-colored butterfly appeared in the world behind her. This blood-colored butterfly almost overlapped with her body. Then, the blood-colored butterfly's wings trembled slightly. Whoosh! A shocking storm swept across the boundless starry sky. Every gust of wind was like a sword, sweeping in all directions. Wherever the storm passed, all life was destroyed. This was Daiyu's strongest killing move. In the world behind Emperor Qing Yin, countless divine dragons roared into the sky. They roared and breathed out crazily, trying to resist the impact of the storm. But Daiyu's wings kept flapping. Each tremor seemed very small, but in reality, every time it flapped, it would instantly vibrate billions of times at high speed. These seemingly weak wings could create a storm that swept across the starry sky. Emperor Green Flame had no choice but to release his true body. Even so, his body could not withstand it. Dragon scales kept falling off, and in the blink of an eye, he was covered in wounds. This Crimson Moonstorm would also cause great damage to Daiyu's body. Wounds had already appeared on Daiyu's wings. Blood flowed out, making the wings even redder. They were like two blood-colored full moons hanging from two wings, staring at Emperor Azure Flame opposite them. "Come and help me," Emperor Green Flame roared. Actually, he did not need to remind them. The remaining 5 Constellation Demon Emperors had already transformed into their true bodies and held up their perfect worlds to block the storm. Under the Crimson Moon storm, there was no pure land in the starry sky. Under the blood-colored moonlight, the storm was everywhere. All living beings had to bear the baptism of the endless storm. End of chapter. Chapter 2982. Constellation Horn Demon the Arch and Heart Constellation Demon the Arch had just left the galaxy and landed in the Great Wilderness Domain. They managed to avoid the Crimson Moon storm. The two demonic Thearchs frowned and exchanged glances. After a short pause, the two demonic Thearchs thought of the same place. They did not turn back and continued to charge toward Wu Dao's original body. They had fought with Dai Yu several times. They had a rough understanding of Dai Yu and Emperor Green Flame's combat power. The Crimson Moon storm was indeed terrifying. However, Emperor Green Flame and the remaining 5 demonic Thearchs should be able to hold on for a while. It would not be too late for them to go back and help Emperor Green Flame after they finished off Araki Takashi. After all, the two of them were more than enough to deal with Araki Takashi. They probably would not even need a breath's worth of time. Break! The two of them descended. Constellation Horn Demon the Arch did not transform into his original body. He only held up his perfect world and pressed it down on Wu Dao's purgatory. Rumble. Wu Dao's purgatory had already expended a lot of energy fighting against more than 10 peerless demonic Thearchs worlds. Now, it could not withstand Constellation Horn Demon Thearch's perfect world at all. It collapsed in an instant and countless flames were extinguished. However, the two of them were still too late. Only Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon the Arch were left in Wu Dao's purgatory. The rest were all turned into ashes, their bodies and souls destroyed. Although Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon the Arch survived, they were severely injured. Their bodies were charred black and their wings had fallen off. It was a tragic sight. More importantly, the two peerless demonic Thearchs' greater success worlds were destroyed by Wu Dao's original body. Without other world fragments and source stones, the two destroyed worlds were extremely difficult to rebuild. Without the protection of their worlds, their combat power would be greatly reduced even if their physical injuries were healed. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Rock Demon the Arch took advantage of Constellation Horn Demon the Arch and Great Rock Demon Thearch's attacks to escape, panting heavily. The two of them looked at Wu Dao's original body with fear in their eyes. Who would have thought that Araki Takashi would become so powerful after 800 years? Fortunately, Araki Takashi was about to fall. With Constellation Horn Demon Monarch and Heart Constellation Demon Monarch attacking, this Araki Takashi had no chance of surviving. Facing 2 peak-tier demon emperors, Wu Dao's real body did indeed feel immense pressure. However, his expression was calm and his eyes were calm as he took out the subduing hell cauldron. Lowly human, surrender now. The Constellation Horn Beast Monarch roared as he supported a world to suppress it. Rumble. Within the body of Wu Dao's main body, a loud sound suddenly came. Like raging waves beating the shore, the roar of the sea. Behind him, a huge flaming furnace appeared. It looked as if it was going to burst through the heavens and earth. 6 terrifying flaming dragons circled around it. In the blink of an eye, the furnace was burned red. Wu Dao pushed his bloodline to the limit and released his bloodline anomaly. At the same time, he lifted the hell-suppressing cauldron and charged towards the Constellation Horn Demon Monarch. The Heart Constellation Demon Monarch's eyes lit up. To think that this human would have such guts in the face of their attacks. To think that he would even take the initiative to meet them head-on. Hee. The Heart Constellation Demon Monarch laughed charmingly and did not hold back. She supported a world and suppressed it at the same time. Roar, roar, screech, roar. For roars suddenly came from the hell-suppressing cauldron. In the next moment, the 4 saint souls on the 4 sides of the cauldron awakened at the same time, revealing huge figures. They were lifelike and exuded a terrifying aura. azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise. Among them, the azure dragon Saint Soul appeared. Its eyes were like torches as it stared at the constellation horned demon monarch opposite it with murderous intent. The constellation horned demon monarch's expression changed drastically, and his aura weakened. It was not his fault. Although a trace of azure dragon bloodline flowed in his body, he was still a flood dragon after all. Facing a real azure dragon, he could not help but feel a sense of fear. Bloodline suppression, soul suppression. The heart constellation demon monarch was also shocked when she saw the 4 Saint Souls. But soon, she reacted and reminded, it's just a few divine soul phantoms. They don't have flesh and blood, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Although she said that, in terms of aura, the difference between the two sides had already increased. Wu Dao's original body roared. The 4 Saint Souls surrounded him, and the heaven and earth cauldron appeared indistinctly. He held the hell-suppressing cauldron and smashed it toward the constellation Horn Demon Monarch and the Heart Constellation Demon Monarch. Boom, 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 boom. The two sides continued to fight, shaking the heavens and earth and causing the void to collapse. In the face of the 2 peak stage demon monarchs' attacks, Wu Dao's original body relied on his bloodline avatar, the 4 Saint Souls, and the hell-suppressing cauldron. He was not at a disadvantage at all. This was the battle strength of Wu Dao's original body after he became a quasi-emperor. He could even fight against some peak-stage demon monarchs. This Araki Takashi is actually so difficult to deal with? The constellation Horned Demon Monarch frowned, and his face darkened. He originally wanted to suppress Araki Takashi as soon as possible and then go back to help Emperor Qing Yan. But now, he and the Heart Constellation Demon Monarch were being held back by this Araki Takashi and could not advance or retreat. On the other side of the battlefield, Emperor Qing Yan and the others were completely at a disadvantage against Dai Yu's fierce attacks. If Emperor Qing Yan was severely injured because of the two of them, they would definitely be punished when they returned to the heavenly court. Don't hold back. Kill him. The constellation Horned Demon Monarch roared and transformed into his dragon form. His blood essence surged as he roared toward the sky. The Heart Constellation Demon Monarch also realized that the situation was not right and did not dare to be careless. She also transformed into her 9-tailed fox form. The world behind her was filled with endless illusions and charms. The Heart Constellation Demon Monarch stared into the eyes of Wu Dao's original body. But what puzzled her was that her charms did not seem to affect this Araki Takashi at all. This was too strange. Her cultivation level and Dao techniques were clearly above this Araki Takashi's. Even if this person's Dao heart was firm and indestructible, it should not be completely ineffective. In fact, it was not Wu Dao's original body that dispelled Heart Constellation Demon Monarch's charms. It was the white jade pendant that the evil emperor gave him. With the jade pendant in his possession, these illusions and seductive Dao arts were completely ineffective against him. Even if they could not charm Wu Dao's original body, the 2 peak demon monarchs' attacks became even more ferocious after they transformed into their original bodies. The pressure on Wu Dao's original body increased sharply. The heaven and earth furnace that he formed also started to shake. The flames flickered and the 6 fire dragons were suppressed. If this continued, the heaven and earth furnace would collapse at any time. At this moment, Wu Dao's original body's eyes lit up. He released his secret technique again. 2 huge doors appeared behind him and suppressed the constellation Horned Demon Monarch and the Heart Constellation Demon Monarch. One of the doors was filled with demonic aura and black hellfire. Countless pale palms reached out from the door. Shrill cries of ghosts could be heard from within. Door of Avicii. The other door was filled with energy and was covered with frost. The moment it descended, the surrounding temperature plummeted. This was another secret technique that Wu Dao's original body cultivated with the help of the Cold Spring chapter of the 9 Springs Hell Sutra during his seclusion. Door of Frost Hell. Chapter 2983. When the door of Avicii descended, the surging Avicii demonic chi and hellfire caused a huge impact on the Heart Constellation Demon Thearka's charm world. Pale palms reached out from the charm world and tried to grab the Heart Constellation Demon Thearka's body. They even wanted to drag her into the Avicii hell. The heart constellation demon Thearchus' face paled when she saw the palms grabbing and touching her. She screamed and waved her 9 foxtails to block them. With the door of Avicii, Wu Dao's original body immediately turned the situation around and gained the upper hand. On the other side, the door of Frost Hell pressed down on the constellation Horn Demon the Arch. Break! The constellation Horn Demon the Arch stretched out his dragon body and roared. His bloodline surged as he supported a world and slammed it against the huge, cold door. Boom! The collision between the two resulted in a deafening explosion. Roar! The constellation Horn Demon the Arch screamed. Not only did he fail to move the door of Frost Hell, but he was also suppressed. A 1,000-foot-long dragon kept struggling under the door of Frost Hell. Its body was covered in blood and dragon scales were falling off. It seemed to be in great pain. The heart constellation demon Thearchus' expression changed drastically. The situation was not right. Without the two of them in the astral battlefield outside the great wilderness domain, Emperor Azure Flame was completely suppressed by the blood butterfly. Now, not only were they unable to kill this Araki Takashi, but the constellation Horn Demon the Arch was severely injured. The situation was critical. What technique was that? Why was the constellation Horn Demon the Arch in so much pain? This scene surprised even Wu Dao's original body. The door of Frost Hell and the door of Avicii each had their own strengths, but in terms of Dao techniques, they were similar. If the door of Avicii could not injure the heart constellation demon the Arch, why was the door of Frost Hell so destructive? The martial Dao body's eyes narrowed as he noticed the frost covering the door of the frozen hell. He immediately thought of the reason. The door of Frost Hell was a secret technique he cultivated with the help of the 9 Springs Hell Sutra's Cold Spring chapter. The frost on it was actually formed by the cold spring of hell. The 9 springs of hell contained different kinds of strange powers. The hell's cold spring was the coldest water in the world. It was extremely harmful to any living being, especially to the demonic beasts in the water. The damage it caused was the most obvious, and its lethality was the greatest. Although dragons were also a branch of dragons, they mainly roamed the rivers and stirred up trouble. That was why the door of Frost Hell was able to cause such obvious damage to the constellation Horn Demon Emperor. Even the constellation Horn Monster Monarch's perfected world couldn't withstand the frost on the door of Frost Hell and could collapse at any moment. Without the protection of a world, the constellation Horn Beast Monarch was even more vulnerable to the door of Frost Hell. Not to mention, behind the gates of Frost Hell, there was still Wu Dao's true body, surrounded by the heaven and earth furnace, and holding the hell-suppressing cauldron in his hand. Dragon Emperor Huanghai and Great Peng Demon Monarch, who had just escaped with their lives, were dumbfounded. How could they have known that this Araki Takashi had barely managed to kill a peerless demon emperor 800 years ago? And now, he had the upper hand against 2 of the 7 constellations' demon emperors. On the astral battlefield, young master, the situation isn't good. Constellation Horn and Heart Constellation are in trouble. Let's retreat first. What's going on? Didn't they say that Araki Takashi is at most a peerless demon emperor? I'm not sure. Emperor Azure Flame's expression darkened. This battle was worse than before. Although both sides had been injured in the previous battle with Daiyu, he and the 7 constellations' demon emperors had the upper hand. Now, Daiyu wasn't seriously injured, but their worlds were already damaged. If they continued, their lives would be in danger. Retreat! Emperor Azure Flame shouted and released a secret technique. More than a dozen 1,000-foot-long azure dragons burst out of his body and coiled around the 2 red moons in the sky. The azure dragons temporarily blocked the red moons against the blood-red moonlight. The howling storm around them weakened slightly. Emperor Azure Flame and the others finally had a chance to catch their breath and retreated. At the same time, Constellation Horn and Heart Constellation Demon Emperors also heard Emperor Azure Flame's voice and prepared to retreat. Constellation Horn Demon Emperor pushed his essence spirit to its limits. His blood chi surged and his world power surged, trying to create a space to escape. Trying to escape? Wu Dao's true body's eyes shone brightly. He descended from the sky with the hell-suppressing cauldron, and stepped heavily on the struggling dragon head of Constellation Horned Demon Emperor. The heaven and earth cauldron and door of the frost hell pressed down at the same time. Crack, 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 crack. Cracks appeared on Constellation Horned Demon Emperor's perfected world and spread rapidly. Constellation Horned Demon Emperor's body was also stepped on by Wu Dao's true body. He struggled with all his might and roared, trying to escape. Boom! Without a word, Wu Dao's true body raised the hell-suppressing cauldron and smashed it down on Constellation Horned Demon Emperor's head. In just one hit, his flesh was lacerated and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. The Constellation Horned Demon the Arch let out a sorrowful cry as he struggled less vigorously. Wu Dao's true body raised his brows slightly. As expected of a peak Imperial Emperor, he used all his strength and smashed down with the hell-suppressing cauldron, but still failed to kill him. Heart Constellation Demon Emperor was enraged when she saw this scene. She shouted, "Araki Takashi, how dare you!" Heart Constellation Demon Emperor unleashed all her strength and pushed her essence spirit to the limit. She activated her charm world and bounced off the door of Avicii. She rushed towards Wu Dao's true body, trying to save Constellation Horned Demon Emperor. Just one door of Avicii was not enough to suppress a peak Demon Emperor's perfected world. Just in time, Wu Dao's true body sneered. He was still stepping on Constellation Horned Demon Emperor, holding the hell-suppressing cauldron in one hand and releasing a mystic technique with the other. Door of Hell condense. Boom. A huge, sinister door appeared in midair and descended from the sky, suppressing Heart Constellation Demon Emperor. Before Wu Dao's true body left the infernal court, he went to the Cold Spring Prison and Bitter Spring Prison. He saw the Cold Spring and Bitter Spring Prison in the Nine Springs Hell Sutra. Therefore, he cultivated two mystic techniques in this seclusion, the Door of Hell and the Door of Hell. The Bitter Spring of Hell was very lethal to the ghost race. Although the Door of Hell did not cause any additional damage to the fox race, it was still a powerful and terrifying technique. One door of Avicii was not enough to suppress Heart Constellation Demon Emperor. With another door of Hell, the situation was different. The two doors descended. Heart Constellation Demon Emperor's expression changed. She was panicking and could only barely resist. She could not even protect herself, let alone save Constellation Horned Demon Emperor. Although Emperor Qing Yan and the others had a chance to catch their breath, they were still locked on by Daiyu. They could not spare time to save the two of them. They could only rely on themselves. Heart Constellation Demon Emperor's face was pale. Araki Takashi stepped on Heart Constellation Demon Emperor expressionlessly. He only raised the hell-suppressing cauldron and smashed it on Constellation Horned Demon Emperor's head. Every time, blood splattered, bones and flesh were sent flying. Constellation Horned Demon Emperor did not make a sound. He was on the verge of death. When Constellation Horned Demon Emperor died, Araki Takashi would definitely turn around and deal with her. End of chapter. Chapter 2984. She could no longer care about the Constellation Horned Demon the Arch. She was already very lucky to be able to escape. The Heart Constellation Demon the Arch screamed and released a mystic technique. The 9 foxtails behind her swelled rapidly. Immediately after, one of the blood-red fox tails suddenly broke, spewing out endless blood mist that dyed half the sky of the great wilderness domain red. This was the blood of a peak demon the Arch. On the battlefield below, billions of living beings subconsciously looked up and were shocked by this scene. A 10,000 feet long flood dragon was being stepped on by a seemingly tiny purple-robed figure. It was already smashed beyond recognition and twitched weakly. Another 9-tailed fox was being suppressed by 2 huge doors and had to break one of its tails. The billions of demon race soldiers were already thinking of retreating. Some had even started to retreat. They could clearly see that Emperor Qing Yan was retreating outside the Great Wilderness Domain. On the battlefield of the Great Wilderness Domain, Araki Takashi had killed more than 10 peerless demon thearchs. He was simply invincible and could suppress everything. The Heart Constellation Demon the Arch used a mystic technique to break one of her tails. Finally, She managed to break free from the two doors and fled in the direction of Emperor Qing Yin and the others. Araki Takashi, listen carefully. I'll avenge my tale in the future. The Heart Constellation Demon Thearch's voice was sharp and piercing. It was no longer as gentle as before and was filled with resentment and hatred. Wu Dao's real body did not answer. He only looked at her coldly and used his strength again to lift the prison's suppressing cauldron and smash it down on the Constellation Horn Demon Arch. Boom. This time, the top of the Constellation Horn Demon Thearch's head was smashed and a huge bloody hole appeared. The Constellation Horn Demon Thearch's essence spirit was also shattered into pieces. One of the 7 Constellation Demon Thearchs, the Constellation Horn Demon the Arch, died on the spot. The Heart Constellation Demon the Arch wanted to escape, but Wu Dao's real body did not intend to let her go. Wu Dao's real body carried the Constellation Horn Demon Thearch's huge dragon corpse in one hand and the prison suppressing cauldron in the other. His black hair danced and his eyes burned with purple flames. He stepped into the air and chased after the Heart Constellation Demon the Arch. Emperor Qing Yin, the remaining 6-7 constellations monarchs, and even Dai Yu looked in their direction as they sensed something. The scene was too shocking. Wu Dao's real body had just killed a peak-tier demon the Arch, and it was one of the 7 constellations demon thearchs. Now, he was carrying a 1,000-feet-long flood dragon's body and charging over. His aura was too powerful. The faces of Emperor Qing Yin and the others turned extremely ugly. They had fought with Dai Yu many times. Although they returned with injuries every time, their lives were never in danger. Who would have thought that he would actually suffer such a huge setback today? This time, not only did he fail to severely injure Dai Yu, he even lost the Constellation Horned Demon Emperor in the Great Wilderness. Boom! Monarch Blue Flame used a secret technique and pointed at the sky above his head. A huge crack instantly appeared above him, emitting rays of light. The multicolored light landed on Emperor Qing Yin and the others, enveloping them and quickly flying towards the crack in the starry sky. Wu Dao's true body's aura was at its peak. After arriving at this place, he didn't hesitate to soar into the air. Stop chasing. Dai Yu's voice rang in his mind. Confusion flashed through the martial Dao body's mind. He and Dai Yu clearly had the upper hand. The enemy had lost a member. This was the best time to chase after them. Why would they let them go? Before he could figure it out, he felt a huge pressure coming through the crack in the starry sky. He couldn't block it at all. Wu Dao's true body frowned. He slowly descended to Dai Yu's side. 2 figures also soared into the sky and chased after Emperor Qing Yin and the others. They were Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch, who had just escaped death. Lord Blue Flame, bring me along. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai shouted as he chased. I'm only 1 step away from reaching the great circle of the Martial Emperor realm. As long as I have enough cultivation resources, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch had chosen to side with Tsong not only because of Tsong's strength. Both of them had guessed that behind Emperor Qing Yin, there might be an unimaginably huge force. Tsong might just be the tip of the iceberg. This faction's strength was unfathomable, and they had an endless supply of cultivation resources. They had submitted to Tsong partly because they hoped to get a chance to truly join Tsong and that powerful force. However, they had just submitted and hadn't done anything yet. Naturally, they couldn't ask Emperor Qing Yin for help. But if they didn't ask now, they wouldn't have the chance anymore. Emperor Qing Yin and the others left again. They didn't dare to face Dai Yu or Araki Takashi in the vast wilderness. Desolate Martial's earlier methods had already frightened the 2 of them completely. Moreover, this might be a better chance. Constellation Horn Demon the Arch, one of the 7 Constellation Demon Thearchs, had died. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai was also a dragon. He couldn't think of anyone more suitable for this position. Emperor Qing Yin stood in the crack in the starry sky and looked down at Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch who were flying over. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch were chasing after them. They didn't notice Emperor Qing Yin and the others' gazes. Those gazes were extremely cold. Some of the 7 Constellation Demon Thearchs looked at Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch with murderous intent. If the two of them had not lied about the military intelligence and said that desolate Marshal was nothing to fear, perhaps the Dragon Emperor would not have died in the grand desolate world. Die. Emperor Qing Yin suddenly spoke and slashed downwards. Two rays of light fell from the sky and cut Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch in half. Blood dyed the starry sky. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon the Arch fell slowly. They looked at the figures in the starry sky that were getting further and further away. Their eyes were filled with confusion and doubt. Why? I've already submitted. Two ants. Do you think you're worthy of following me? Emperor Qing Yan's voice was filled with anger. Constellation Horn Demon the Arch had just died and Emperor Qing Yin had suffered a great loss. He had nowhere to vent his anger. These two were simply courting death. Hearing this, Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Demon Monarch Da Peng recalled the last words Da Yu had said to them before they broke off their relationship with her. Qing Yin has a special background and a powerful bloodline. He sees all living things as ants. You may be dragons, but you're no different to him. Song might not be a good home for you. Be careful in the future. The two didn't think much of it and didn't take it to heart. They didn't expect it to come true today. Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and Great Peng Demon Thearka's primordial spirits started to disperse. The two of them turned their heads and looked in Da Yu's direction. Their eyes were filled with guilt, regret, and self-blame. Unfortunately, it was all too late. When Da Yu saw this, she couldn't help but lower her eyes and sigh. After all, these two had followed her for many years. Although they had broken up, she couldn't help but sigh when she saw them end up like this. End of chapter. Chapter 2985. The huge crack in the starry sky was slowly healing. Monarch Qing Yin looked down at Da Yu, shook his head and said, Shuedai, I wanted to keep you alive to train your cultivation and strengthen your bloodline. But next time, I won't give you another chance. Then, Emperor Qing Yin looked at Wu Dao's true body and the huge dragon corpse in his hand. He clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. That's because Desolate Marshal has caused a calamity. He's going to bring calamity to the eastern wilderness. The next time I come to the great wilderness, I will show you our true strength. I will kill this person with my own hands and slaughter all the creatures in the eastern wilderness. I will use the blood of billions of creatures in the eastern wilderness as a sacrifice to the soul of the Mansion of the Horn. His voice was like thunder, spreading to every corner of the great wilderness. No one doubted Emperor Qing Yan's words, because many people knew that Song's strength was not limited to this. Fear and worry appeared on most of the eastern wilderness people's faces. Some creatures even looked at Wu Dao's true body with complicated expressions. In just a few words, Emperor Qing Yin put all the pressure on Wu Dao's true body. He was telling everyone that the culprit behind the destruction of the eastern wilderness and the deaths of billions of creatures was Araki Takashi. Wu Dao's true body was not relaxed either. Emperor Qing Yan's true body was most likely the heavenly court, the terrifying force that had destroyed several epochs and buried many emperors. No one could deal with such a powerful force calmly. At this moment, Da Yu suddenly stretched out her hand and held his hand, holding it gently. Wu Dao's true body looked at her. Da Yu also turned her head. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. In an instant, Wu Dao's true body felt lighter. All the pressure disappeared. At this moment, the two of them stood side by side as if they could face any enemy, even the legendary heavenly court. Wu Dao's true body looked up to the sky and shouted, Qing Yin, if you dare to come to the great wilderness again, this flood dragon will be your end. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Dao stomped heavily on the ground, causing flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. With a loud crack, the constellation Horn Demon Thearka's corpse was trampled into two. Roar! The 6 beasts under the 7 constellations Monarch Beast uttered furious roars. Emperor Blue Flame's face was livid. If it weren't for his injuries, he would have immediately gone down and torn that Araki Takashi into pieces. But he knew that now was not the best time. Good, good, good. Emperor Qing Yin was so angry that he laughed and applauded. It had been a long time since someone dared to provoke him like this. This sort of feeling even caused him to feel a trace of freshness and excitement. Emperor Qing Yin grinned and said slowly, "I will definitely come to the great wilderness again. It won't be long. That will be the end of the eastern wilderness, the end of all you ants." The crack in the starry sky had completely closed, and Emperor Qing Yin and the others had disappeared. Only Emperor Qing Yan's voice was still echoing in the great wasteland domain. Although the Eastern Barren Territory had won this battle again, Emperor Blue Flame's last words still made the Eastern Barren Territory's creatures feel gloomy. No one knew when Emperor Qing Yin would come again. No one knew what would happen the next time Emperor Qing Yin came. No one knew if Daiyu and Araki Takashi could stop him. Wu Dao's true body looked in the direction where Emperor Qing Yin and the others had disappeared and murmured, "They might have returned to the heavenly court. What's with that powerful pressure?" "I'm not sure." Daiyu shook her head and said, "I tried, but I couldn't break in at all." After the battle ended, the generals of the Eastern Wilderness cleaned up the battlefield. Wu Dao's true body had gained a lot from this battle. He had obtained the greater success worlds of more than 10 peerless demon emperors. Unfortunately, half of the horned demon emperor's world had been devoured by the door of frost hell in the battle. It had fallen into hell. The door of frost hell not only had strong killing power, but it could also connect to hell. The door of frost hell's existence was equivalent to building a portal to hell in Wu Dao's true body's domain. Daiyu gave some simple instructions and returned to Butterfly Valley with Wu Dao's true body. They both knew that although they had defeated Emperor Qing Yin and the others and killed one of the 7 constellations' demon emperors, it was nothing to be happy about. The next battle was the one that would determine the survival of the Eastern Wilderness. Wu Dao's true body pondered and said, "According to Emperor Qing Yin, he might come back soon." Daiyu nodded and said, "He and the 7 constellations' demon emperors were heavily injured. It will take them a few hundred years to fully recover. Fortunately, you helped me stall the 2 peak-stage demon emperors in this battle. My world isn't that badly damaged. It will recover after some rest." At this point, both of them fell silent. After a long while, Wu Dao's true body said slowly, "The next time Emperor Qing Yin comes, the 2 of us won't be able to stop him." In fact, both of them were well aware of this point. Song's strength was definitely not just limited to Emperor Qing Yin and the 7 constellations' demon emperors. Since Emperor Qing Yin had said so, the next time he descended on the Great Wilderness, it would be with an army. As long as there were 2 peak-stage experts like Emperor Qing Yin, Daiyu would not be able to stop them. If there were a few more peak-stage emperors like the 7 constellations' demon emperors, Daiyu and Wu Dao's true body together would not be able to stop them. No matter how strong a peak-stage emperor was, there was a limit. Daiyu was silent. After a while, she said, "I'm afraid we will only be able to resolve the next crisis if we become a great emperor. Otherwise, although that was the case, it was not that easy to become a great emperor. Since the beginning of time, in the endless river of time, countless talented geniuses had emerged. However, only a few of them had become emperors in the end." Wu Dao's true body thought for a while and said, "If I want to improve my cultivation level, I might have to leave the Great Wilderness for a while." "Okay." Daiyu agreed without hesitation. She did not ask where Wu Dao's true body was going. Actually, it was easy to make the connection if he chose to leave the Great Wilderness now. After all, the next time Emperor Qing Yin came, the Great Wilderness would be destroyed. It was normal to choose to escape due to fear. However, Daiyu had never doubted Su Zimo. On one hand, she knew Su Zimo's Dao. On the other hand, she trusted Su Zimo. "Aren't you curious where I'm going?" Wu Dao's true body asked with a smile. "Aren't you afraid that I won't come back?" "How dare you?" Daiyu narrowed her eyes. Wu Dao's true body smiled and said, "Before I leave, I have a sutra to read to you. It should help you." "Sutra?" Daiyu raised her brows. Wu Dao's true body nodded and told Daiyu about the 600-word Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. In fact, he did not only have the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, but also many other taboo sutras. However, the inheritance of taboo sutras was too complicated. Unless one saw the first version of the taboo sutra with their own eyes, they would not be able to understand its essence. Even if Wu Dao's true body told Daiyu about the taboo sutra, she would not be able to learn anything. It would be like listening to a heavenly book. For example, the Sky-Burying Sutra was printed on a stone tablet. Not only were there the sutras of the Sky-Burying Sutra, but there were also the Tao techniques and Tao rhymes of the Sky-Burying Sutra. One could only cultivate it by seeing it with their own eyes. Otherwise, the Taboo Sutra would have spread throughout the 3,000 worlds and would not be so rare and precious. End of chapter. Chapter 2986. For the next 10 years, Wu Dao's original body stayed in the Butterfly Valley, teaching the Yin-Yang rune scripture while discussing Tao techniques with Daiyu. Although Wu Dao's original body had not stepped into the Emperor realm, his Tao techniques were unique and had refined countless secret techniques and scriptures. He had his own unique understanding of many Tao techniques. When the two of them discussed the Tao, they both gained something from each other. However, Wu Dao's original body was still a little short of stepping into the Emperor realm. Daiyu also did not sense any opportunity to become a great emperor. She could feel that she was getting closer and closer to the threshold of the great Emperor realm, but she still could not find a way to truly step into it. 10 years later, Wu Dao's original body was ready to leave. If he continued to cultivate in the vast wilderness, it would be difficult to step into the Emperor realm in hundreds of years. You're going to hell? Daiyu was slightly surprised to hear Wu Dao's original body's plan. Wu Dao's original body had mentioned his identity as the Lord of Hell to Daiyu. However, he had always been cautious about this identity. Thinking back to the day when he fell into hell, everything was pushed by the Tomb Keeper. Wu Dao's original body did not want to be bound by an identity. Wu Dao body explained, "There is a taboo secret manual in the Infernal Court, the 9 Spring Scripture of Hell. I have cultivated 2 parts of it. If I can refine this taboo secret manual, I should have a chance to step into the Imperial realm." "Do you want to go to Avicii Hell again?" Daiyu asked. "No need." Wu Dao's original body activated his primordial spirit, and with a thought, a huge door with dense yin qi appeared behind him, the door of Frost Hell. "This door is connected to Hell. I can return to the Infernal Court at any time." The Infernal Court. Since the new Lord of Hell left, the Infernal Court returned to a short period of peace. Cold Spring Hellmaster was killed by the new Hellmaster. In the battle at Fengdu City, 7 of the remaining 8 Hellmasters died, including 2 quasi-emperor Hellmasters. Only the old Hellmaster Ku Quan was lucky enough to survive. Although many of the Infernal Realm's creatures didn't approve of this Lord of Hell, they didn't dare to raise any objections. His methods were thunderous and iron-blooded, and he also had the Netherworld treasure mirror. After all, he was an outsider. Many Earth prison creatures, especially the Nether race in Earth prison, were strongly against him. After Wu Dao's true body left, the 9 Hells temporarily revered the prison concubine as their mistress. Regarding this prison concubine, many of the Infernal Realm's living beings still had many criticisms in private. Firstly, this Hell concubine's cultivation level was too low. She had only just become a Netherworld general. The Netherworld general was the true One Realm in the Heaven Realm. Secondly, the Lord of Hell had left and hadn't shown himself for a long time. This Hell concubine had the fundamental formula of the Hell Sutra of the 9 Springs, so it was easy for others to covet it. However, the Hell concubine was guarded by Hellmaster Ku Quan. Even if the Hell concubine was disloyal, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. Although Hell Overlord Ku Quan was old, he was still a quasi-emperor. From a certain point of view, after Wu Dao's true body left, the Infernal Court had always been in a state of being without a leader. Although many Infernal Realms living beings revered Princess Yufei as their mistress, Princess Yufei's cultivation level wasn't high. It was difficult for her to suppress the many vicious and bloodthirsty Infernal Realms living beings. Fortunately, with Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Hell Overlord Cold Spring guarding her, she was safe for a period of time. However, as time passed, Wu Dao's true body still hadn't returned. There wasn't even any news about him. Gradually, there were some waves in the Infernal Court. Of course, Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Hell Overlord Cold Spring were enough to deal with these situations and stabilize the situation. However, 10 years ago, the peace of the Infernal Court was completely broken. For some reason, pieces of world fragments suddenly fell from the infernal court. And they were perfected world fragments. The Hell Kings and Nether Kings of the infernal court couldn't break through due to the shattering of heaven and earth and their incomplete laws. It was even difficult for them to touch the quasi-emperor realm. These Hell Kings and Nether Kings had been stuck in the perfected Grotto Heaven realm for a long time. As long as they were given the slightest opportunity, they would be able to grasp it and quickly break through. As for the Hell Kings and Netherworld Kings, the falling fragments of perfect worlds were simply a heaven-sent opportunity for them. After these perfected world fragments fell, it instantly set off a bloody storm. In the end, they were divided up by dozens of Hell Kings and Nether Kings. Hell Overlord Cold Spring, Tangkong, also obtained a perfected world fragment with the help of Hell Overlord Ku Quan. In just a few years, these Hell Kings and Nether Kings who obtained the world fragments had all broken through and became quasi-emperors. In the 9 levels of Hell, other than Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Cold Spring Prison, the Hell Overlords of the other 7 levels of Hell had changed again after countless battles. In the end, the 7 Hell Overlords finally set their eyes on Princess Yufei. In fact, before Wu Dao's true body left that day, Hell Overlord Ku Quan had told him, "The creatures of the infernal court were ferocious and bloodthirsty. Once you leave, you will be like a headless dragon. It is very likely that you will fall into chaos and endanger Princess Yufei." However, even Hell Overlord Ku Quan did not expect this calamity to come so soon. Originally, he thought that as long as he was alive, he could at least protect Princess Yufei's safety. But he did not expect that the many world fragments that fell 10 years ago would immediately break the balance of power in the infernal court, and dozens of quasi-emperors emerged. Hell Overlord Ku Quan sensed that the situation was not good. He immediately escorted Princess Yufei out of Black Spring City and went straight to Cold Spring Prison. There were only 2 people by Princess Yufei's side, Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Tangkong, who were completely trustworthy. Tangkong was able to take the position of Hell Overlord Ku Quan because of Wu Dao's true body. The flames of war continued to spread and soon reached Cold Spring Prison. Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Cold Spring Prison could not resist the Hell Coalition army formed by the 7 Hell Overlords. They were defeated and retreated all the way to Cold Spring Grand Hall. On the square in front of the Grand Hall, the flames of war swirled. Corpses were strewn everywhere, and blood flowed. It was an extremely tragic scene. Tangkong's armor was already in tatters. He held a long saber in his hand and looked at the scene in front of him. In a trance, he seemed to see the scene of the purple-robed man slaughtering here many years ago. It was like déjà vu. But today, they were going to die here. Hell Overlord Ku Quan's white hair made him look even older. He stood side by side with Tangkong and looked at the densely packed Hell Coalition army in front of them. The 7 Hell Overlords stood in midair, and there were more than a dozen quasi-emperors. They sighed in their hearts. The difference was too great. Both of them knew that Cold Spring Grand Hall was about to fall. Tangkong, why do the 2 of you have to do this? Hell Overlord Ku Quan raised his head slightly and said, "Hand over the Hell Concubine, and we will spare your lives on account of our old friendship." Tangkong sneered and scolded, "Wind Shadow, Princess Yufei is the Dao companion of the Hell Overlord. She is the mistress that we all respect. How dare you have designs on her?" Ha 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 ha. Tangkong's words caused the 7 Hell Overlords and the quasi-emperors to roar with laughter. Hell Overlord Ku Quan pursed his lips and said, "What kind of Hell Overlord is that Araki Takashi? He is just a foreign race that accidentally took over the nest of a magpie. We've never acknowledged him, let alone become the mistress of the house." End of chapter. Chapter 2987. Haha. Tangkong sneered. "Back in Fengdu City, my master had the Netherworld treasure mirror and all of you bowed to him. Who dared to oppose him? My master has only left for a short while, and all of you can't wait to jump out. Aren't you afraid that my master will kill all of you when he returns?" The 7 Hell Masters and the Boundary Emperors all changed their expressions when they heard this. In their hearts, they were still somewhat fearful of the new Lord of Hell. After a moment of silence, Hellmaster Ku Quan laughed and said, "There has been no news of him for so many years. I guess he must have died in the middle world. He's just a dead man. What's there to be afraid of? Tang Kong, Ku Quan, don't try to stall for time. If you don't get out of the way, we'll give the order to kill without mercy." Perhaps Tang Kong's words had caused the 7 Hell Masters to panic. They did not want to drag this out for fear of any unexpected changes. At this moment, the door of the main hall slowly opened. Princess Yufei walked out from inside. The eyes of the hundreds of millions of hell beings lit up when they saw Princess Yufei. Princess Yufei looked thinner and more haggard, but she was still stunning and instantly attracted countless gazes. Over the years, because she had mastered the Hell Sutra of the 9 Springs, her cultivation speed had been extremely fast. Although she had not become a Netherworld king, she had cultivated to the peak of the Netherworld general realm. "Mistress, why have you come out?" Wu Dao's original body had saved Tang Kong before. Even in the face of Princess Yufei, whose cultivation level was far lower than his, Tang Kong was still extremely respectful. "Thank you for protecting me all these years." Princess Yufei bowed deeply to Hellmaster Ku Quan and Tang Kong. If not for these two, she would not have been able to survive until today. Princess Yufei said, "The person they want is me. The two of you don't have to sacrifice your lives for me." Tang Kong was about to speak when Princess Yufei used her divine consciousness to say, "Escape. You must survive. I believe he will come back. Someone has to tell him about today's matter." Tang Kong was silent. Bitter Spring Prison Lord smiled bitterly. "Tang Kong, you should go. I don't have much time left. I'll stay here and accompany Mistress on her last journey." Seeing that Princess Yufei was willing to come out, Hell Lord Hong Quan was naturally overjoyed. He looked at Princess Yufei and said softly, "You don't have to be afraid. As long as you obey me, when I become the Lord of Hell, you will still be the matriarch of Hell. You will never become the Lord of Hell." Princess Yufei shook her head and said, "There is only one master of Hell. He's dead." Hellmaster Hong Quan's face darkened as he said coldly. Spring Hell Master sneered and said, "Even if he's not dead, he won't be able to stop us." That day in Fengdu City, he gave it his all and only managed to kill 2 quasi-emperors. He was beaten to the point of vomiting blood. In the end, he had to use the underworld treasure mirror to stabilize the situation. Now, we have 20 quasi-emperors. If he dares to return, he will definitely die. Even the underworld treasure mirror will not be able to protect him. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the depths of the cold spring hall, and the entire hell shook. Hundreds of millions of hell beings gathered in the square, and it was originally noisy. But at this moment, everyone held their breath and looked in the direction of the sound. Even the 7 Hell Masters and more than a dozen quasi-emperors frowned as they stared at the depths of the cold spring hall, as if they wanted to see through the situation inside. However, although the door of the hall was open, it was dark inside. There was a powerful force that blocked everyone's vision and divine sense. Before anyone could react, the sound of footsteps could be heard in the hall. It came from afar and soon arrived at the entrance of the hall. Under countless gazes, a man in a purple robe, with a head of black hair and a silver mask walked out. The Lord of Hell. After a brief silence, there was an uproar in the sky and on the ground. Even the quasi-emperors in the air were shocked. Their eyes flickered, and their expressions were uncertain. Tang Kong, Hellmaster Ku Quan, and the others were in high spirits, and they were overjoyed. Princess Yufei looked at the familiar figure not far away. Her eyes were a little red, but she only pursed her lips and did not say a word. Wu Dao's appearance immediately suppressed the aura of the army of hundreds of millions of hell beings. Hellmaster Ku Quan was the first to react. If this continued, they would be defeated without a fight. Hellmaster Ku Quan suddenly said in a low voice, "This person is not the Lord of Hell. He is only wearing a mask and pretending to be the Lord of Hell." No one knew what the Lord of Hell looked like except for Princess Yufei. Hellmaster Ku Quan's clever move was that even if the Lord of Hell in front of them was real, there was no way to explain. Even if Wu Dao took off his mask, no one would recognize him. He could have confidently declared that the Lord of Hell was a fake. Hellmaster Ku Quan was also a little skeptical. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? He had just said that he would kill the Lord of Hell, and the Lord of Hell had appeared. He only understood when he heard Hellmaster Ku Quan's words. Regardless of whether the Lord of Hell in front of them was real or fake, they had to kill him first to prevent future troubles. Hellmaster Ku Quan said in a low voice, "Everyone, let's attack together and kill this fake Lord of Hell." Hellmaster Ku Quan's words dispelled the concerns of many Hell beings. They would inevitably be wary if they were to attack the Lord of Hell. However, if they were to attack a fake Lord of Hell, they would have no qualms. In the face of the murderous boundary emperors, the Lord of Hell who had suddenly appeared seemed extremely calm. He did not take them to heart at all. Instead, he chatted casually with Princess Yufei. "Why are there so many boundary emperors?" Wu Dao asked. Before he left, Hellmaster Ku Quan was the only boundary emperor left. However, there were 20 of them in front of him. There were more than 30 boundary emperors lurking nearby. Princess Yufei briefly explained the situation of the many world fragments that had fallen into Hell 10 years ago. 10 years ago? Perfect world fragments? Wu Dao raised his eyebrows slightly. He thought for a moment and understood the reason. Those perfect world fragments from 10 years ago should have been the constellation Horned Demon Emperor who had died in his hands. At that time, the door of Frost Hell had swallowed more than half of the constellation Horned Demon Emperor's perfect world. Although Wu Dao had cultivated the door of Frost Hell, he had not cultivated to the point where he could control things that fell into the door of Frost Hell. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to it. He did not expect that these world fragments would instead create the Hell Kings and Underworld Kings of Hell. The two of them had only exchanged a few words when the 7 Hell Masters and more than a dozen Boundary Emperors had already arrived. They all released their Boundary Emperor's Grotto Heavens. Hellmaster Ku Quan and Tang Kong looked solemn. Wu Dao did not look up as if he did not see this scene. He only sighed softly at Princess Yufei and said, "It's my fault. Those perfect world fragments were accidentally dropped after I killed an opponent." When they heard the Martial Dao Body's words, the 20 Boundary Emperors who had just arrived stopped in their tracks. What do you mean?" Some of them thought for a moment and quickly realized what he meant. They were so frightened that they trembled and their expressions changed. Some of them felt their legs go weak and almost fell from the sky. My friends in the college entrance examination, do your best. End of chapter. Chapter 2988. With just one sentence from Wu Dao's true body, the 7 Hell Overlords were thrown into disarray, their morale falling apart. This was not their fault. It was just that this sentence sounded too shocking. What kind of people possessed a perfect world? A true Imperial Emperor expert. And a peak Emperor. However, even a peak Emperor had been killed by Araki Takashi. They dared to attack Wu Dao's true body because they had the combat strength of a Boundary Emperor. But now, they suddenly realized that the reason they could become Boundary Emperors was because Araki Takashi had unintentionally given them an opportunity. The battle had not yet begun, but their courage had weakened and they were at a loss. Hell Overlord Dark Spring saw that the situation was not good. If this continued, they would collapse without a fight even if Wu Dao's true body did not make a move. "Everyone, don't listen to his nonsense," Hell Overlord Dark Spring said in a deep voice. Before the Lord of Hell left, his combat strength had not reached the Emperor realm. Now that only a few thousand years have passed, how could he have reached the level of killing a peak Emperor? That's right. Hell Overlord Dark Spring also said loudly. His words are full of loopholes and prove the fact that he is pretending to be the Lord of Hell. We are Hell Overlords. You are too naive to think that you can scare us with just one sentence. The 7 Hell Overlords gradually calmed down. However, the other Boundary Emperors were still a little hesitant. Hell Overlord Dark Spring swept his gaze and sneered. "If you are scared off by just one sentence from him today, you will lose all face and become a laughing stock in the Hell world." When the Boundary Emperors heard this, they also felt a little embarrassed. They once again held up their Boundary Emperor Grotto Heavens and stared at Wu Dao's true body, ready to attack. Wu Dao's true body turned around and glanced at the 20 boundary emperors around him. His gaze was calm as he said slowly, "Losing face is better than losing life." In the great wasteland domain, he had experienced a true emperor battle. Those he faced were all peerless emperors and even peak emperors. Now, looking at the 20 boundary emperors around him, he really did not have much interest. Wu Dao's original body didn't even make a move. He just glanced at them indifferently and moved his divine sense. Suddenly, the bodies of the 20 quasi-emperors heated up. Whoosh! Before they could react, numerous crimson-red flames shot out from their bodies, burning their internal organs. Their skin and flesh cracked like red lotuses, and flames gushed out from their 7 apertures. The grotto heavens of these quasi-emperors were burning with raging flames, instantly turning red. In just a few breaths, he could no longer hold on and completely collapsed. Wu Dao's true body controlled these 6 supreme flames. As his cultivation base and divine sense increased, the power of each of these flames would increase as well. With his current cultivation level, even if it was just one type of flame, the surrounding boundary emperors would not be able to withstand it. Ah, ah, ah. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the bodies of the 20 quasi-emperors burned with red lotus hellfire, as they screamed miserably. No matter how they struggled, they could not break free from the red lotus karmic fire. The red lotus karmic fire burned all sins. Only those who were not tainted by karma and sinful would not be harmed at all. This scene was too impactful for the billions of living beings in hell. From the beginning to the end, Wu Dao's true body did not even move a single finger. In a few breaths, the 20 quasi-emperors were burned to ashes without a corpse left. Even the Lord of Hell back then was probably nothing more than this. In the past 10 years, the number of hell experts who obtained the world fragment of the constellation Horn Demon Emperor and became quasi-emperors was more than the 20 that had just died. In the vicinity, there were more than 30 quasi-emperors lying in wait, waiting to see what would happen. Now that they saw this scene, the quasi-emperors did not dare to hesitate and appeared one after another. They came to the cold spring hall and knelt down to Wu Dao's true body. "Greetings, Master." The quasi-emperors bowed down. In the sky and on the ground, the billions of living beings in hell knelt on the ground with terrified expressions. Wu Dao's true body ignored them. He seemed to have discovered something and was deep in thought. Just now, when the red lotus karmic fire ignited on the bodies of the 20 quasi-emperors, the flames of the red lotus karmic fire deviated slightly. Wu Dao's true body stretched out his fingertip, and a cluster of red lotus karmic fire burned on it. The flame was slightly tilted, as if there was a special force guiding it in that direction. That was the direction of the cold spring of hell. The last time when Wu Dao's true body released the red lotus karmic fire, such a situation did not occur. It was just that after the red lotus karmic fire burned the nether energy, its power would increase. Now, it was very likely that the red lotus karmic fire's power had increased as his cultivation level increased. But what was this mysterious attraction to the red lotus karmic fire? The source was the cold spring of hell? The records of hell did not seem to mention that the cold spring of hell had such a characteristic. Or was the source of this attraction also the source of the cold spring of hell, the Nether River? Wu Dao's true body pondered for a long time, temporarily suppressing the curiosity in his heart. Dai Yu had once told him that there was a great terror at the end of the Nether River. If even Dai Yu was so afraid, there was no need for him to take the risk now. The most important thing was to cultivate the Hell Sutra of the 9 Springs, and at the same time refine the many fragments of the world to step into the Emperor realm. Wu Dao's true body was daydreaming, thinking about other things. The 30 or so quasi-emperors and hundreds of millions of hell creatures knelt on the ground, not daring to move. They were extremely anxious and tormented. Who knew what the Lord of Hell was thinking? It was not impossible for him to vent his anger on them because they did not do anything. The more Wu Dao's true body remained silent, the more afraid this group of people became, and their imaginations ran wild. "Master," Hell Overlord Ku Quan called out softly. Wu Dao's true body came back to his senses. They Hell Overlord Ku Quan pointed at the group of hell creatures kneeling on the square and said tentatively, although these people are in the wrong, they do not deserve to die. They will be a great help if they stay by your side. Why don't you give them a chance? Rise. Wu Dao's true body nodded slightly. He did not intend to start a massacre and kill all of them. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief as if they had been pardoned, but they still did not dare to rise. Wu Dao's true body looked at the 30 or so quasi-emperors and hundreds of millions of hell creatures not far away, and said slowly, if you are willing to serve me as your master, there will naturally be greater opportunities for you in the future. If you are not willing, you can leave now. The 30 or so quasi-emperors were energized when they heard this. Wu Dao's true body had only killed a peak emperor, and the fragments of the world that fell unintentionally could help them become quasi-emperors. If there was greater opportunities, who would not be tempted? We are willing to follow Master to death. If we betray you, may the heavens and earth destroy us. The 30 or so quasi-emperors said in unison, and the hundreds of millions of hell creatures echoed. Hell Overlord Ku Quan looked a little lonely when he saw this. He did not have much time left, and even if there were more opportunities, it would have nothing to do with him. Chapter 2989. Wu Dao body turned to look at Tang Kong and Bitter Spring Hell Lord. Nodding slightly, thank you both for this time. Naturally, he could see that if it weren't for Hell Overlord Ku Quan and Tang Kong's desperate protection, Lady Jade wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Tang Kong smiled. Master, you're too kind. It's our responsibility. Ku Quan also smiled. I don't have much time left. Now that Master has returned and is guarding Hell, I can leave in peace. The martial Dao body patted the Bitter Spring Hell Lord's arm and said, with me here, you won't die? Huh. Prison Master Ku Quan was startled. He didn't quite understand what the martial Dao Master meant. He hesitated and said, I'm afraid I only have a few thousand years left. The Grotto Heaven King's lifespan was 1,000,000 years. Although a quasi-emperor had not truly stepped into the emperor realm, their lifespan was greatly increased, reaching 2 to 3 million years. A few thousand years may seem long, but for a quasi-emperor with a lifespan of 3 million years, it was just a blink of an eye. Wu Dao said, don't worry. A few thousand years is enough. Wu Dao did not say anything. He did have a way to give Ku Quan and the others an opportunity, but the time was not yet right. Ku Quan saw that Wu Dao's tone was firm and did not seem to be joking. He could not help but let his imagination run wild. He only had a few thousand years left. If he did not want to die, there was only one way, and that was to step into the Emperor realm. Only by stepping into the Emperor realm and increasing his lifespan could he survive. But the infernal court was shattered, and its laws were incomplete. He had been stuck at the quasi-emperor realm for 2 million years. It was impossible for him to step into the Emperor realm. Could Master let me step into the Emperor realm and become a true emperor? Thinking of this, Ku Quan's heart, which had been dead for many years, was stirred again. Wu Dao looked at Ku Quan and Tang Kong. I'm going to seclude myself in the infernal court for a while. I'll leave this place to you. Ku Quan and Tang Kong bowed and agreed. Emperor Qing Yin said that he would make a comeback. Dai Yu estimated that it might take a few hundred years. Time was tight. Wu Dao's true body exchanged a few words with Princess Yufei before heading to the cold springs of the other 7 hells to cultivate the remaining 7 chapters of the 9 Springs Hell Sutra. Flower Realm, Planet Qinglian. Over the past 10 years, Wu Dao's original body and Dai Yu had been discussing Dao in the Great Wasteland domain while Qinglian's original body was in seclusion. She had also gained a lot. However, after Wu Dao's true body entered Hell, the connection between the 2 true bodies was once again severed. Su Zimo gradually woke up from his secluded cultivation in the cave. After calling Kitsune and Carefree over to his side, Su Zimo said, prepare yourselves. I'll take the 2 of you away from this place and return to the Sword World. Kitsune naturally had no problem with it and nodded calmly. Carefree stood at the side with an awkward expression, and he stuttered and hesitated to speak. What's the matter? Su Zimo looked at Carefree in surprise and asked. Biming Shui smiled at the side and said, Master, let's go back. Let Xiaoyao stay here to accompany his sister Mulian. Carefree's face instantly flushed red when he heard this. Carefree glared at Kitsune and did not speak. He seemed to be silently protesting against Kitsune exposing his past. Huh. Suzimo was stunned. Seeing Carefree's angry and embarrassed look, he knew that Kitsune was right. Over the years, he had spent most of his time in seclusion and did not pay much attention to his second disciple. He did not expect that Carefree and Mulian would develop so quickly. Suzimo smiled and asked, I remember that before you went into seclusion, the two of you stayed together all day to discuss Tao and learn from each other, right? Kitsune curled her lips slightly and said, in the first year, he followed me and called me senior sister all day long. In the next few years, it was difficult for me to see him even once. No way. Carefree looked embarrassed as he mumbled. Mulian was a chivalrous and upright person. If Carefree could become her Tao companion, Suzimo would naturally be happy for him. However, he had another layer of worry in his heart. This was also the reason why he wanted to leave the flower world. Suzimo pondered for a moment and said, Do you still remember the nether calamity poison that immortal King Yulan mentioned when he visited the sword world? Kitsune nodded. Suzimo said, at that time, immortal King Yulan said that a large amount of water in the flower world was contaminated by the nether calamity poison, but no one noticed it. At that time, I suspected that this nether calamity poison might have been sprinkled by someone in the flower world. Moreover, this person's status in the flower world might not be low. It was precisely because of this suspicion that Suzimo instructed immortal King Yulan to hide the situation of the three of them after coming to the flower world to prevent them from being targeted by the person who poisoned them. Why would someone in the flower world harm their own people? Carefree asked in confusion. Suzimo shook his head and did not say anything. This was only his guess, and he did not have any evidence. Suzimo said, No matter what, Carefree, if you want to stay on planet Qinglian, you must be careful everywhere. Not only do you have to hide your bloodline, but you also have to pay attention to some hidden dangers. Carefree nodded. Suzimo pondered for a moment and left a message talisman to Carefree, saying, If you feel that something is wrong, escape as soon as possible. If you can't escape, tear this message talisman and I will know. Thank you, Master. Carefree hurriedly knelt on the ground and bowed to Suzimo, his eyes slightly red. Get up. Suzimo smiled and gently flicked his sleeve, lifting Carefree up. Then, after a little tidying up, he took Kitsune, bade farewell to immortal King Yulan, and drove the immortal boat to the sword world. Although Suzimo had not stepped into the Grotto Heaven realm, he could break through the void and enter the spatial tunnel with the help of the Yin-Yang Grotto Heaven Phantom. On the way back, Suzimo said, This time, I will probably leave the sword world. Leave the sword world? Kitsune looked at Suzimo, a little puzzled. She could tell that Suzimo's departure might not be as simple as going out for a walk. Suzimo nodded and said, In the beginning, when Emperor Iron Crown invited me to join the sword world, I told him that I would leave one day. Of course, this was not an impromptu idea. Very early on, Suzimo had thought of establishing a force so that the beings of the lower worlds could have equal opportunities to cultivate. The Heaven Baron sect was established under this idea. But as time passed, chaos appeared in Heaven Baron. Emperor Bo Sun entered the Pure Land of Bliss. The world-destroying Demon Emperor came back to life, and Immortal Emperor Chun Mu guarded the Nine Heavens' immortal realm. There were signs that the Heaven world was no longer a good place. The Heaven Baron sect would definitely evacuate. Moreover, Immortal Emperor Chun Mu had said something meaningful to him in the Emperor Tomb, telling him to escape as soon as possible so that he would not be involved in a catastrophe. Once the catastrophe that swept across 3,000 worlds broke out, at least so far, except for Wu Dao's original body, all his old friends of Heaven Baron, including his Qinglian's real body, would not be able to withstand it. Suzimo had to leave a way out for these old friends of Heaven Baron. Chapter 2990. Master, where are you going? I'll follow you. Kitsune said. Suzimo shook his head slightly. Stay in Sword World for now and continue cultivating. Strive to cultivate the true Wu Dao body to perfection as soon as possible. I'm going out to travel. If you follow me, you won't be able to gain any experience and might not even have time to cultivate." Kitsune lowered her head slightly in disappointment. After the two of them returned to Sword World, Suzimo reorganized himself slightly before heading to Myriad Sword Palace to visit the three Emperor Lords who controlled Sword World. The three of them were not surprised to hear that Suzimo intended to leave. Back then, the three of them had expected this day to come. The main reason why the old man with the iron crown left Suzimo behind to be the peak master of Ninth Sword Peak was to form a good relationship with him. However, the three of them were still surprised to hear that Suzimo did not intend to be the peak master of Ninth Sword Peak. Suzimo did not hide it and said, "If there's a chance in the future, I'll establish a faction, and it's not suitable for me to be the peak master of Sword World." That was only one of the reasons. There was another reason that he did not mention. The three of them exchanged glances. They could not force Suzimo since he had already made up his mind. The fat old man sighed. "It's a pity that the position of Peak Master of Ninth Sword Peak is empty. There's probably no suitable person in Sword World. Do you have anyone to recommend?" The skinny old man looked at Suzimo and asked. Suzimo pondered for a moment and said, "Kitsune, her?" The fat old man and thin old man exchanged glances in deep thought. The fat old man pondered and said, "Kitsune attracted the 99 heavenly tribulations. After you left, she became the #1 true spirit of Sword World and obtained your legacy. Her potential is limitless and she is indeed qualified to be the peak master of Ninth Sword Peak." The skinny old man frowned. "She is indeed qualified. However, her cultivation realm is not high enough and it's a little early for her to be the peak master." The old man with the iron crown said, "Cultivation realm isn't a problem. When Suzimo was the peak master of the Ninth Sword Peak, he was only at the true spirit realm. The problem is, the Ninth Sword Peak contains the sword burial Dao you left behind. Yet Dark North seems to have not comprehended the sword burial Dao. So, how can he be the master of a peak?" Suzimo said, "As far as I'm concerned, the Ninth Sword Peak isn't equal to the burial peak. If Dark North were to become the peak master of the Ninth Sword Peak, she would leave behind her own sword Dao on it. During the 10 years that Kitsune cultivated in the Flower World, she had once sparred with Xiao Yao and gained a lot from it. Even Suzimo could sense the changes in Kitsune. Kitsune's cultivation method was inherited from Wu Dao, but in the Sword Dao, she formed her own sect." The old man's eyes lit up. In this way, the Ninth Sword Peak might become the most unique existence in the sword dimension. The old man with the iron crown said, "In recent years, there have been frequent wars in the 3,000 worlds. The wars between the dragons, phoenixes, and the Ku and Pong have involved many worlds. You have to be careful when you travel. Don't get involved in these wars. Otherwise, it will be difficult to escape." The fat old man nodded and said, "In a war of this scale, even immortal kings can't protect themselves, let alone true spirit realm experts." The thin old man also said, "It's not just a war between these super worlds. I heard that the civil war in the Great Wasteland domain is very tragic. Imperial emperors have fallen one after another, and there are even peak imperial emperors who died in the Great Wasteland." The old man with the iron crown said in a deep voice, "I heard that the blood butterfly demon empress in the Great Wasteland domain has a helper by her side. His Taoist name is Araki Takashi, and his combat strength is extremely terrifying." After a pause, the old man with the iron crown reminded again, "Suzimo, you must not go to the Great Wasteland. It's too dangerous there." Suzimo coughed softly and agreed casually. The old man with the iron crown was puzzled when he saw Suzimo's strange expression. He asked, "Do you have a destination in mind for your trip this time?" Suzimo recalled everything that happened in Songlang Mountain Range and could not help but smile. He nodded and said, "Sanguine Ape World." Suzimo had met most of his old friends who had ascended to the upper world from Tianhuang mainland, or obtained some information about them. Monkey was the only one who had no news of him. Monkey belonged to the Sanguine Ape race, and logically speaking, he should have ascended to the Sanguine Ape world. However, due to the calamity of the Sanguine Apes did not step foot into the Celestial Tribute world, and Suzimo did not have the chance to find out about Monkey's whereabouts. Now that he planned to leave the sword world and travel, the first person he thought of was Monkey. The two of them knew each other the earliest and had a deep relationship. Not only did Monkey save his life, the two of them even lived together in Songlang mountain range for a period of time. Those days were unforgettable. Sanguine Ape World? The old man with the iron crown thought for a moment and said, "The Sanguine Ape World isn't that dangerous." Ever since the calamity of the Sanguine Apes, the Sanguine Apes suffered heavy losses and their vitality was greatly damaged. They rarely appear in the 3,000 realms anymore. The fat old man advised, "You're only a step away from the Grotto Heaven realm. Why don't you wait until you enter the Grotto Heaven realm before leaving? That way, you'll be safer." "That's right." The skinny old man nodded as well. Suzimo said, "My situation is a little special. If I cultivate in seclusion, I don't know how long it'll take for me to enter the Grotto Heaven realm. Seniors, there's no need to worry. Given my current cultivation, unless an Imperial Lord expert attacks personally, the others won't pose much of a threat to me. Given his current combat strength, he could definitely kill ordinary kings. Even if he encountered peerless or peak kings, he could make use of the Tai Yin Yang escape technique to escape from the battlefield at any time." The three Imperial Lords reminded him again before allowing Suzimo to leave. Before he left, Suzimo visited the 8 Peak Masters and drank until dawn. After that, he met with Yunting again. Ever since the battle in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the gap between the two of them had gradually widened. In terms of cultivation realm, Yunting was not too far behind Suzimo. However, Yunting knew in his heart that the difference in combat strength between the two of them was like heaven and earth. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough. However, Suzimo was way too terrifying. His 9 supreme divine powers were unprecedented and unparalleled, never before seen in history. After bidding farewell to everyone from the Sword World and settling everything, Suzimo left for the Blood Ape realm. Suzimo was not worried about Monkey's situation. He heard from the Sword World that the Blood Ape race would not look down on their tribesmen who ascended from the lower world. Given Monkey's talent, he should be able to do well in the Blood Ape realm. He traveled through the spatial tunnel continuously. Relying on his spirit perception, he avoided dangerous places like black holes in space. Along the way, he was more scared than hurt. More than 2 months later, a huge and dark spatial rift suddenly appeared in the starry sky. A black-haired, green-robed man walked out. He had a head full of black hair and looked travel-worn. However, his eyes were bright and spirited. The green-robed man stood in midair and looked into the distance. Endless mountain ranges coiled in the starry sky like dragons, forming a boundless continent that was extremely majestic and shocking. The mountain peaks towered above, and ancient trees provided shade. Compared to the ancient trees and mountains, the surrounding stars seemed much smaller. Among them, the most obvious was a blood-colored mountain peak in the center of the mountain range. It was tall and steep, almost piercing through the firmaments. A single glance at the blood-colored mountain peak, and the green-robed man felt a surge of battle intent surging towards him. "Blood Ape Realm," the green-robed man muttered softly. Chapter 2991. Who's there? The moment the green-robed man approached the Blood Ape World, 2 true spirit experts of the Blood Ape World appeared and blocked his path, hollering. The green-robed man smiled and cupped his fists. "I'm Suzimo, and I'm here to visit an old friend." Suzimo did not intend to continue hiding after leaving Sword World and relinquishing his position as the Peak Master of 9th Sword Peak. Instead, he wanted to revert to his true name. On one hand, it was because his cultivation was growing, and he had the strength to protect himself. On the other hand, it was also because of the strength of Wu Dao's true body. "Old friend?" The 2 Blood Ape true spirits frowned and sized up Suzimo with a scrutinizing gaze. The green-robed man looked travel-worn and should have come from afar. True spirit experts would encounter many unexpected dangers if they traveled long distances through the cosmos. It could be said that they would most likely die. This human true spirit looked frail. To think that he would have such guts and methods. "What's the name of your old friend?" The blood ape true spirit on the left asked. I don't know. Suzimo shook his head gently. The expressions of the two blood ape true spirits darkened. They thought that Suzimo was toying with them and were about to fly into a rage. Suzimo spoke once more. That old friend came from Tianhuang mainland in the lower world. When he was in the lower world, he did not have a name. Therefore, I'm not sure if he has a name after ascending. Tianhuang mainland? The blood ape true spirit on the right frowned slightly and whispered, could it be senior brother Yuan Huang? That's possible. The one on the left replied, Master asked senior brother Yuan Huang, and he seemed to have mentioned that he came from some Tianhuang mainland. That's why he used that name. When the two blood ape true spirits saw that Suzimo had a friendly expression and sounded sincere without any pretense, they let down their guard. Follow me. The blood ape true spirit on the left turned and led the way towards the blood-colored mountain peak while saying, the true spirit battle is being held in our race recently, and senior brother Yuan Huang is also a popular candidate for the #1 true spirit. Oh? Suzimo's eyes lit up. It seemed that not only was the monkey living a good life in the blood ape realm, but he was also successful in his cultivation. He actually had a chance of contending for the title of the #1 true spirit in the clan. May I know your name, fellow Taoist? Suzimo asked. My name is Yuan Eng, the true spirit of the blood ape clan replied. The two of them sped along, and it didn't take long for them to arrive near the blood-colored mountain peak. As soon as he approached, Suzimo heard the cries of sanguine apes reverberating between the numerous mountains and ancient trees. It was extremely lively. Suzimo looked over and saw numerous blood apes gathered near the blood-colored mountain, and numerous figures stood on the ancient trees. They were densely packed and innumerable, causing it to be an unprecedentedly grand scene. From the looks of it, this true spirit battle was a rare event for the blood ape realm. At the foot of the mountain, there were 10 huge stone platforms. On each platform, there were 2 blood apes fighting each other. There was even a gigantic empty ranking board pasted on the blood-colored mountain peak. Yuan explained, those 10 stone platforms are the battle platforms of our race, and that ranking board is the combat ranking. In every true spirit battle, only the top 10 clansmen will be able to leave their names on the combat ranking. Suzimo nodded and scanned his surroundings, searching for traces of monkey. Senior brother Yuan Huang is over there. Yuan pointed into the distance. Suzimo looked over and could not help but chuckle. The blood ape in the distance was seated in a lotus position with his eyes closed. Although his side profile was facing them, Suzimo recognized him immediately. That blood ape named Yuan Huang was none other than Monkey. After so many years, Monkey's body had changed tremendously. His body was clearly much taller and more muscular, while his arms were longer and abnormally thick. Senior brother Yuan Huang just fought a huge battle and is recuperating. Don't disturb him for now. Yuan did not continue to lead Suzimo forward. Instead, he descended on the periphery and said in a low voice, the top 10 of the true spirit battle have been decided. There's still the final ranking battle. It won't be too late for you to visit him after the ranking battle. All right. Seeing that Monkey was fine, Suzimo was not in a hurry to meet him. He could observe Monkey's abilities from the side. Suzimo took a quick look. In this true spirit battle of the blood apes, apart from the many spectators and participating true spirits, there were also 6 kings presiding over the true spirit battle. Not long after, the battle for the top 10 began. Suzimo noticed that 2 of the top 10 blood apes were only at the Kongming stage. Monkey was one of them. The remaining 8 were all at the Dongshu stage. Monkey was able to enter the combat ranking at the Kongming stage, and even had the chance to compete for the title of #1 true spirit. It seemed that he was indeed capable. Who's that? Suzimo's gaze landed on one of the top 10 blood apes as he asked softly. That blood ape had a dark face and an unusually ferocious gaze. He was covered in thick fur, and his blood chi was extremely vigorous. Even from afar, Suzimo could sense the strength of his bloodline. The bloodline of that blood ape was clearly superior to the other 9, and was definitely Monkey's greatest opponent. When Yuan heard Suzimo asking about that person, he frowned instinctively and dodged his gaze. His expression was a little strange, as though he was fearful and disgusted at the same time. He's Ma Xian, Yuan replied. Su Zimo asked again, why is his surname Ma? He could understand why the blood apes chose the surname Yuan. But where did the surname Ma come from? Yuan pursed his lips slightly. His background is different. His status and bloodline are much nobler than ours. Naturally, we can't compare. Su Zimo could tell that there was a hidden meaning in Yuan An's words. Indeed, there were some blood apes gathered together in the surroundings, and they looked different from Monkey, Yuan An, and the other blood apes. The most obvious difference was that those blood apes had dark faces and were taller and stronger. Before he could continue asking, the battle on the fighting platform had already broken out. The 10 blood apes fought in pairs. Monkey was up against a Paradise Void Realm true spirit. Both parties clashed the moment the battle started, and the melee combat was exceptionally intense. Although Monkey's cultivation realm was lower, he was not weak in melee combat. Furthermore, Monkey's battle intent was clearly suppressing the other party, and he fought even more valiantly. Su Zimo nodded to himself. If nothing unexpected happened, Monkey should be the victor of this battle. Right at this moment, an unexpected event occurred abruptly on another combat arena. A blood ape was severely injured and defeated. It turned to flee from the fighting platform. However, the tall, dark-faced blood ape caught up to him and smashed down with its cudgel, shattering the top of his head. His soul was scattered, and his body and Dao vanished. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he narrowed his gaze. That was way too ruthless. This time, it was completely aiming to kill. He had long heard that the blood apes were ferocious and belligerent. Could they be that ruthless against their own race as well? The victor was clearly decided earlier on, and there was truly no need for them to be so ruthless. Or could there be other reasons behind this? Before Su Zimo could figure it out, the victor was decided on the other battlefield as well. To be precise, it was a life and death battle. Ma Xian pounded his chest and howled in excitement. Gripping his spear tightly with his other hand, he pierced the head of the blood ape opposite him and smashed it into pieces. The headless blood ape's corpse fell into a pool of blood and twitched unconsciously in a tragic manner. Chapter 2992. Su Zimo glanced sideways at Yuan and beside him. Yuan An's eyes flashed with rage towards the gruesome and bloody scene on the fighting platform. However, he did not say anything. It was the same for the rest of the sanguine apes. The sanguine apes seemed to be used to such a scene. Although they were furious, they did not reveal much fighting spirit. Even the 6 sanguine ape world kings presiding over did not stop them. Su Zimo noticed that among the 6 sanguine ape world kings, 2 of them were sanguine apes with dark faces and taller figures. Life and death are allowed in the true spirit battle of the sanguine apes? Su Zimo asked. Yuan was silent for a moment before replying. In theory, there are no rules or restrictions. Life and death are allowed. It was clear that Yuan did not finish his sentence. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, I think the 2 true spirits of the sanguine ape world who attacked earlier on seem to be different from you guys. They should have different bloodlines, right? This was an extremely common situation among the 10,000 races. For example, among the dragons, there were the Horn Dragon, Blue Dragon, and Illumination Dragon. Although they were dragons, their bloodlines were completely different. Yuan nodded and did not hide anything. Fellow Taoist, you're right. Those 2 guys earlier on belong to the horse-monkey lineage. There are 4 lineages in the ape-monkey lineage. Right now, the 2 most common lineages in the sanguine ape world are the sanguine ape lineage and the horse-monkey lineage. Su Zimo nodded. However, although they were both of the horse-monkey lineage, Ma Xian on the fighting platform had a unique bloodline that was clearly superior to the other members of his race. As the 2 of them conversed, the outcome of the remaining 3 fighting platforms was decided as well. For the 3 true spirit battles, the 6 true spirits, including Monkey, were all of the sanguine ape lineage. Although both sides fought fiercely, it did not escalate to a life and death battle. The moment the outcome was decided, they stopped immediately and walked down the fighting platform respectively. Seems like the sanguine ape lineage and the horse-monkey lineage have some grudges. Su Zimo pondered in deep thought. After the first round of battles ended, 5 people emerged victorious and Monkey was one of them. In the second round of the True Spirit Battle, the 5 contestants drew lots first, and there were a total of 5 tokens. The True Spirits with the number 4 token and the number 5 token would battle first, and the winner would become the 4th seed. Then, number 1 against number 4, and number 2 against number 3. The drawing order came out quickly. Number 1 was Monkey, number 2 was Ma Xin, number 3 was Yuan Cheng, number 4 was Ma Xiao, and number 5 was Yuan Ci. Number 4 and number 5 were the 2 bloodlines from the Blood Ape realm. In the True Spirit Battle, Ma Xiao had killed another true spirit of the Blood Ape clan. Ma Xiao grinned at Yuan Ci and crooked his finger. Yuan Ci didn't utter a word. She carried her staff and stepped onto the fighting platform. A great battle instantly broke out. Those able to charge into the top 5 of the battle list were naturally not easy to deal with. Ma Xiao's attacks were fierce and aggressive. Yuan Ci was extremely calm. She was neither panicked nor anxious. She was on the defensive while attacking. Not a single drop of water leaked out. Both sides were in a stalemate for a long time. Ma Xiao's attacks gradually weakened, while Yuan Ci began to counterattack and gradually gained the upper hand. After fighting for a while more, Yuan Ci's bloodline surged and her aura suddenly soared. With a long howl, she broke through Ma Xiao's defenses and her metal staff went straight for the top of his head. If that staff hit, Ma Xiao's head would definitely be smashed into pieces and he would die on the spot. When Ma Xiao could not defend against it and was about to die on the spot, Yuan Ci's metal staff suddenly stopped hovering above Ma Xiao's head. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The relationship between the 2 lineages seemed to be different from what he had initially expected. If there was some sort of grudge between the 2 lineages, why would the Blood Ape lineage leave any leeway when the Horse Monkey lineage was so cold-blooded and had just killed a bloodline clansman? When he saw Yuan Ci stop on the fighting platform, Yuan Un was not enraged. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. The other members of the Blood Ape tribe were not surprised by this scene. Since it's life and death, what are the Blood Ape lineage worried about? Suddenly, Su Zimo asked. Yuan was stunned, as though he had not expected that Su Zimo would notice the abnormality so quickly. He had a troubled expression and stuttered without saying anything. Right then, something happened on the battlefield. Initially, the outcome of this battle was already decided. However, just as Yuan Ci retracted his staff and was about to turn and leave, Ma Xiao suddenly attacked and released killing moves and secret skills consecutively. Yuan Ci was caught off guard and was heavily injured before she could even defend herself. However, Ma Xiao did not give him any chance to live and killed him with a single staff strike, destroying his essence spirit. This unforeseen event caused an uproar. The entire process took less than 2 to 3 breaths. By the time everyone reacted to it, Yuan Ci was already dead on the spot. What are you doing? Despicable and shameless. A series of curses burst forth from the Blood Apes, and they were all agitated. Ha ha ha. Ma Xiao laughed arrogantly and pointed his staff at the many Blood Apes below, shouting, "Anyone who's indignant can come up and fight me." Although the Blood Apes were furious, none of them stepped forward when they heard that. Su Zimo looked at the 6 kings who were presiding over the True Spirit Battle high above. If none of the 6 kings stood up to uphold justice in such a situation, then the problem of the Blood Ape realm was more serious than he had imagined. Among the 6 kings, a Blood Ape king slowly stood up and gestured with his hands. He waited for the surrounding curses to die down before looking at the 2 horse monkey kings sitting beside him. The outcome of the battle just now was clearly decided. Yuan Ci showed mercy, but Ma Xiao ambushed him from behind and killed him. Isn't he too vicious? Haha, one of the horse monkey kings sneered. The outcome was already decided? Life and death are not determined on the battle stage. There is no such thing as victory or defeat. He was careless and was killed by someone else. He can't blame anyone else. You. The Blood Ape King's face flushed red with anger when he heard those words. Among the remaining 3 Blood Ape Kings, some were silent and some sighed. The last one reached out and pulled the Blood Ape King, persuading in a low voice, "Patian, forget it." The sky-breaking Ape King clenched his fists and didn't say a word. He still looked coldly at the two-horse monkey kings beside him. Suzimo's divine sense moved. The sky-breaking ape king's cultivation was at the greater success stage of the grotto heaven realm, while the two-horse monkey kings were only at the initial success stage. However, the sky-breaking ape king and the other three blood ape kings were clearly wary of the two-horse monkey kings. What? The horse monkey king's expression darkened when he saw the sky-breaking ape king standing still and staring coldly at him. He slowly stood up and asked coldly, "Do you want to overturn the heavens?" Suzimo's gaze moved and landed on a token at the horse monkey king's waist. His pupils constricted and flashed coldly. He narrowed his eyes and said, "By the will of the heavens." This medallion represented the origin of this monkey king, the sky offering world. Suzimo didn't expect to meet someone from the sky offering world in the blood ape realm, and a king at that. Perhaps there was more than one. Chapter 29:93. You know about the heavenly order? Yuan looked at Suzimo in surprise. Suzimo nodded and did not say anything. Yuan revealed a sad expression and laughed mockingly. Since you know about the heavenly order, you should know that they belong to the heavenly order. Who dares to challenge them? Faced with the questioning of the horse monkey king, the heaven-breaking ape king seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure. Gritting his teeth, he sat back down slowly. The sanguine apes gradually quietened down. The laughter from the horse monkey tribe was unusually ear-piercing. Suzimo could clearly sense that the sanguine apes no longer had the spirit that they should have. Their willpower was low. Suzimo asked, "Since the true spirit battle doesn't concern life and death, what's wrong with killing the other party? Pay with your life." Yuan said, "Furthermore, it's not just the person who kills them that will pay with his life. His parents, brothers, children, and anyone related to him will be implicated and buried with him. Let me ask you, under such circumstances, would you dare to kill the other party?" Suzimo was silent. Yuan clenched his fists slightly and became agitated. He said softly, "It's not that the sanguine apes don't have guts. It's just that we've been through way too much over the years. I told you earlier that the ape monkey tribe originally had 4 tribes. Among them, the stone monkey tribe went extinct at the end of the war era. The macaque tribe went extinct in the calamity of the sanguine apes in this era. What did our guts get us in the end? The horse monkey tribe submitted and became the lackeys of the heavenly order. At least the sanguine apes didn't submit." Suzimo sighed softly in his heart. He knew about the hardships and pressure the sanguine apes faced in the past. He also understood the choice they made. If they continued to resist, the sanguine apes would follow in the footsteps of the stone monkey and macaque tribes. As Yuan said, it was already rare that the sanguine apes did not submit to the heavenly order. Furthermore, in this era, only the sanguine apes dared to question the heavenly order and even went to the extent of clashing head-on. In the end, it led to the calamity of the sanguine apes that almost wiped out their tribe. Among the 3,000 in the upper realm, only the blood ape clan had the guts and courage to do so. However, under the pressure of the traitors and the celestial bestowment world, the bloodiness of the blood apes had gradually been wiped out. They no longer had the spirit to fight against the heavens. Yuan gradually calmed down and realized that he had lost his composure. Only then did he say, "Fellow Taoist, I've made a fool of myself by saying so much." There was no contempt in Suzimo's eyes. His expression was solemn as he cupped his hands in respect. The second round of the true spirit battle was not over yet. The remaining 4 people fought in pairs. Monkey number 1 fought against Ma Xiao, who had just killed the blood ape clan's true spirit. Number 2, Ma Xian, was fighting against number 3, the blood ape race's true spirit. Seeing this, Yuan turned his head and said, "Senior brother Yuan Huang is quite lucky. He has a higher chance of winning against Ma Xiao. If I meet Ma Xian in this round, I'm afraid I'll be eliminated early." Suzimo had long noticed that Ma Xian's qi and blood were clearly stronger than the other members of the Horseshoe Monkey clan. That Ma Xian's bloodline seems to be somewhat special. What's his background? Suzimo asked. Yuan looked at Suzimo in surprise and praised, "Fellow Taoist, You have sharp eyes. Pausing for a moment, Yuan said, there's an extremely rare and supreme bloodline of the horseshoe monkey lineage known as the red-bone horseshoe monkey. The red-bone horseshoe monkey understands yin and yang, understands human affairs, and is adept at entering and exiting, avoiding death and prolonging life. Ma Xian belongs to that bloodline. As the two of them conversed, the battle had already begun on the battle platform. Su Zimo pondered and asked again, since the horseshoe monkey lineage has such a supreme bloodline, do the other three lineages have it as well? Of course. Yuan nodded. The supreme bloodline of the stone monkey lineage is known as the intelligent stone monkey. It's capable of transformations, knows the weather and geography, and can shift the stars. The supreme bloodline of the macaque lineage is known as the six-eared macaque. It's adept at hearing and can discern reason, understanding everything. As for the supreme bloodline of the sanguine ape lineage, it's known as the long-armed blood ape. It can grasp the sun and moon, shrink the mountains, discern right and wrong, and manipulate the universe. At that point, Yuan turned to Monkey on the battle platform and hesitated. Actually, senior brother Yuan Huang has already awakened the long-armed blood ape. However what? Su Zimo asked. Yuan said regretfully, after the calamity of the sanguine ape, the horseshoe monkey lineage submitted to the heaven tribute world and controlled the sanguine ape world, forbidding us from leaving. With that, senior brother Yuan Huang is lacking in opportunities and has only awakened 10% to 20% of his bloodline. He's far from reaching the peak of the long-armed blood ape. As the two of them conversed, the outcome of the two battles on the battle platform was about to be decided. Ma Xian relied on the immense blood qi of the red-bone horseshoe monkey and did not use his full strength. He toyed with his opponent like a cat toying with a mouse and controlled the situation. On the other side, Monkey's cultivation realm was lower. However, he relied on a powerful secret skill to raise his combat strength to the level of a paradise void realm. Su Zimo had witnessed that secret skill personally before. Back when the true marshal's 10th heavenly tribulation descended on Wu Dao's true body, the Emperor of Combat released a similar method. According to Yuan An's description, the long-armed blood ape could grab the sun and moon and shrink mountains. It was clear that it possessed immense strength and was most proficient in melee combat. Furthermore, Su Zimo could sense a strong will to battle for Monkey. It was unyielding and fearless. Against that aura, Ma Xiao was forced to retreat. Die. Right then, as though he was unwilling to continue toying with his opponent, Ma Xian's blood qi surged and he waved his dagger axe, breaking through the defenses of the sanguine ape true spirit and piercing the other party's head. On the other side, the outcome was decided as well. After a series of head-on clashes, Ma Xiao's arms were numb and he could no longer grip his rod. He was sent flying by Monkey's rod. However, Monkey did not stop against the bare-handed Ma Xiao. A ferocious glint shone in his eyes as he swung his rod and smashed it towards Ma Xiao's head. Ma Xiao's expression changed. The aura and killing intent released by that rod was completely different from the previous situation. Not good. He wants to kill me. That thought flashed through Ma Xiao's mind and he was alarmed. Without time to think, he reached out instinctively and grabbed Monkey's rod. Bang! The rod smashed down and was gripped tightly by Ma Xiao's hands. Crack! Crack! The sound of bones cracking could be heard. Under the immense pain, Ma Xiao glared at Monkey with widened eyes and hollered, "How dare you kill me?" "That's right, I'm going to kill you." Monkey smirked and let go of the rod with a sinister gaze. He strode forward and bent his knees slightly, propping his hands in the air as though he was offering a fruit. Ma Xiao gripped Monkey's rod with both hands. He could not defend in time and could only retreat instinctively. However, Monkey was even faster. With a leap, he stood up and grabbed Ma Xiao's chin with both hands. Snap! Ma Xiao's head was flung back at a frightening angle and his cervical vertebra was snapped. Monkey had no intention of stopping and punched in reverse, smashing down towards Ma Xiao's face like a gigantic seal. Ma Xiao's reaction was extremely fast as well. Although his body was severely injured, his essence spirit broke out of his body and fled into the distance. Just as his essence spirit was about to escape Monkey's attack range, Monkey's arm suddenly expanded by dozens of feet and tore through the air. The gigantic seal descended from the skies and destroyed Ma Zhao's essence spirit. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.